Yo, my legendary warriors, Chronos here, and you already know it's time for another insane chapter. Welcome back to What If Deku Had Solo Leveling System, Part 9. Deku's power is reaching god-tier levels, the stakes are rising, and the battles? Absolutely next level. If you're here for broken abilities, legendary fights, and non-stop hype, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, smash that like button. Let's hit 100 likes to drop the next part. And if you're new here, subscribe and join the Unstoppable Legends because the series, it's only getting crazier. Big shout out to Michael Zelanka, the mastermind behind this fire concept. Go support them. Now, enough talk. Let's get into the action. Danger, danger, danger. Looking around and trying to sense where the being is that his danger sense is blaring like mad, Izuku froze seeing what was coming out of a cave in the mountain. The Great Water Dragon was awakened. Great Water Dragon JORMUNGAND. If any of you are interested what JORMUNGAND means, hear the explanation from Google. Parade. According to Norse mythology, JORMUNGAND is known as a world serpent. In Greek, this name means dragon teeth. This dragon name refers to a water dragon in Old English. Izuku gulped. A red name. The last time he actually saw a proper red name was against Michael, as Baru didn't have such an intense color even. Great Water Dragon JORMUNGAND is using the skill Absolute Zero. A magnificent dragon that height was a head lower than Tusk in his large form shot a white substance from her mouth that Izuku could see has a freezing effect on everything but the Dracos. The shadows of Izuku's army tried shielding themselves or using fire-based attacks, but nothing was working. Izuku infusing MP to the skill Fire Manipulation, it made the flames turn black instead of its orangey red. The two separate colors clashed with each other with Tusk and the magicians using a power-up spell to help their liege. The Throne Angels that had the most powerful fire but are weak to everything else helped stopping the spread of the Absolute Zero all around. Cooldown 3 minutes. Skill Fire Manipulation leveled up from LV.4 to LV.5. Evolved. 0 mana skill. Can use fire as an attack, defense, or support. Max temperature is 4,000 C without mana. If mana is added, then the intensity can change. Seeing that it has a cooldown, Izuku yelled, "All elite knights and lower finish of the Dracos. Captains and Gabriel, please help me deal with JORMUNGAND." Getting nods from his shadows, the massive group separate. Kisame was the one that surprised Izuku. He attacked the dragon from behind, tearing some skin off the white beauty. Then the tail that had ice spikes at the end smashed Kisame into shadows. It started to move its back, allowing its powerful wings out of the frozen shell. Cracking could be heard as JORMUNGAND sent out water attacks to flood the army away. The wings started to stretch, revealing a light blue underwing, whilst the rest was pure white with claws at the end of each frontal joint. From under the wings, Izuku swore he saw snowflakes being formed. Then, eyes widening, he tried to use his shadows to impale the dragon, but with a fierce flap of her wings got the dragon of the ground soaring into the air. Summoning his spear, he threw it with spear throw, but to his surprise the JORMUNGAND dodged to the left, swinging in the air with grace. Making the Longinus return to him, Izuku used float to be on an even plane with the dragon and was shortly joined with Gabriel, Mikao, Baru, Pain, and Raphael. The rest of the captains made sure to finish of the hordes of the Dracos and the lizards that came to the rescue of their leader. Izuku understood it and nodded to all. Pain, summon a flying animal. I will have Kaisel up here. Nodding, Pain summoned the bird with Rinnegan eyes. Raphael and Gabriel done a combined attack of light spears whilst Mikao sent out spikes from one of its mouths. Baru then went in to attack the dragon whilst the Rinnegan bird was trying to help. Smirking, Izuku flicked a blue from his gravity manipulation but continued shooting whilst JORMUNGAND was trying to dodge all of the attacks. Sadly for the dragon, the last bullet couldn't be dodged, and with the pressure of the captains and the general, its wing got crushed. Not wanting to die, the dragon sent a tsunami of water out of its mouths all around itself and then started to control the snow around it to make itself harder to be seen. Sadly for JORMUNGAND, Izuku had his sensing ability, which he used to get in close and with the full might of his strength punched the dragon upwards where Gabriel was, although he winced from hitting the scales. His girlfriend rose her leg upwards and smashed the head of the dragon, caving it, killing the first great dragon. Great Water Dragon JORMUNGAND has been defeated. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Wow, that took longer than expected. Let's clear this area up and go towards the next. You have received Dragon Pass. All dragons will grow proportionally to your dragon levels. However, there are 2 stronger than most. Izuku quirked an eyebrow but went to the corpse of the dragon. Kneeling down, he said, "Arise. You have failed to extract the shadow. You still have 2 chances remaining. So this inst as strong as the monsters can get." They can get stronger, heh? Also, what her name? Izuku thought, but once more in a commanding tone spoke. Arise, Mizuchi. Black tendrils started to come out of the body with a head starting to form. A larger, more imposing figure was shown, with JORMUNGAND being taller than originally and had 2 wings at the back. The main change was her tail that had ice spikes and at the end a club. She had white skin with black highlights that produced smoke. Finally, when she stretched her wings out, black smoke started to come out. Mizuchi LV.1 Commander. Mizuchi is a Japanese dragon found in aquatic habitats. Shadow Army. You have only unlocked 7 ranks: Normal, Elite, Knight, Captain, General, Commander. Normal. Their strength is C rank. Their level cap is LV.10, then you need to upgrade them manually. Elite. Their strength is B rank. Their level cap is LV.20, then you need to upgrade them manually. Knight. Their strength is A rank. Their level cap is LV.30, then you need to upgrade them manually. Elite Knight. Their strength is low to mid S rank. Their level cap is 40, then you need to upgrade them manually. Captain. Their strength is high S rank to low national level. Their level cap is 50, then you need to upgrade them manually. General. Their strength is mid to high national level. Their level cap is 60, then you need to upgrade them manually. Commander. Their strength is low international level. Their level cap is 70, then you need to upgrade them manually. Wow, Mizuchi. Izuku patted the white dragon on the head. Can you talk? After the bow that the dragon gave Izuku, in a gentle but powerful female tone, Mizuchi spoke. I can, my liege. Izuku smiled back at her. I hate to ask, but which dragon do you recommend for me to take on? I would recommend my brother, the Earth Dragon, my liege, Mizuchi said. Looking a little guilty, Izuku asked, I am sorry to ask, but are you okay fighting your siblings? Worry not, my liege. After being reborn, I feel free, as if the shackles that this world held is no more. My brethren will feel the same. Mizuchi spoke in a gentle tone. After that, Izuku arose 50 water, manipulating Draco and changing their name to something different. Their shape completely changed into a light blue shadow with the height of 2 meters, with wings at the back, but had head flaps that could spread wider so they can sense some more powerful powers. 50 water Draco LV.30 Elite Knight. With Rumi jumping from building to building, she saw Ryukyu in her dragon form and hawks hovering above the buildings in front of the Nomu. The elephant Nomu that I will be calling sent a massive gust of wind through its nose, destabilizing Kigo, whilst Ryuko got pushed back a little bit. Seeing an opportunity, she leaped from a building holding the night killer that Izuku gave to her during their first and accidental raid. She wished she was with Izuku, but sadly Rumi had plans with Ryukyu for the day, such as discussing what Sir Knight I asked and completing a B rank gate. She couldn't help but smirk, thinking that Izuku is killing of dragons. This would be a shock for her friend, but ignoring that her adrenaline was pumping throughout her body, anticipating this fight. When jumping towards the Nomu, Rumi used her telekinetic power to pull herself towards it and got ready to slash the trunk. Much to her surprise, the dagger only digged in about 3 centimeters until she was pushed back. Ryukyu used this moment to fly towards it and try to bite the Nomu in 2, but much to everyone's surprise, the Nomu caught the top and bottom jaws and started to swing her around, throwing her into a building. Hawk sent out some feathers to try to cause some damage, whilst thinking, this is getting worse than I thought. Then the Nomu moved, finally getting behind him and smashing its trunk in the side of the hero, making him cough up some blood. Then he was atop of Ryukyu, groaning. Cursing silently, Rumi kept her smirk as she hopped around, missing the elongated trunk of the gnome whilst trying to cause some damage with the dagger. She really had to thank Izuku with the healing ability, as she did get stronger and faster from it, repairing her torn muscles. Dodging another slash from the trunk, she jumped upwards, and when falling down she did her Luna kick, but with the Nomu raising its hand up, it blocked, stopping Rumi, who used her leg power to jump away. Looking around, she saw that the other 2 S ranks started to get up and the sidekicks of Ryukyu's agency started to get everyone away. She then suddenly saw the building that the dragon woman was thrown in start to collapse. Seeing closely, she saw 2 young girls standing there, not knowing what to do. Cursing her hero heart, she had to reveal her power. Rising her hand up, she caught all of the falling debris and pushed it away, just in time for a sidekick to pick the 2 up and rush away. Although a shadow started to come out from her shadow, finally, with Nizu and Aizawa. Interesting. So this is exactly what Izuku meant. Nizu mused to himself as he and Aizawa both were watching the news of the situation. Having a raised eyebrow, Shota asked. Izuku gave her the power to use telekinesis. Not really. He found it in a dungeon, and as he already had a similar power, he gave it to Maruko as they entered the same gate. Nizu explained towards one of his teachers. With 1A. Quiet, all of them were watching the news. The news stations loved doing it nowadays, but a lot of people looked at Rumi in a new light. Most thought she was an adrenaline junkie, but it wasn't as true as they believed. It looked similar to what Izuku and Star and Stripe had to face. Mina commented. Katsumi grunted a response. This one looks weaker than the one at Kimono. It isn't as dark as the slime was, but darker than the USJ one. Shoko spoke. Izuku is most probably in a gate, so he won't know about it. Denki offhandedly said. Is it me, or is Izuku the one that actually keeping the peace in Japan nowadays? Like, look. He pointed at the screen showing Slimy, who replaced the elite knight he had in Rumi's shadow in the morning. This shadow is dealing more damage to the Nomu than the 3S ranks combined. Everyone looked at Denki for some time. Kyoka broke the silence. I hate to admit it, but the idiot is correct. All Might is mostly teaching here whilst Izuku and his shadows deal with the Nomus, gates, and villains. I can only see Maruko and Endeavor be any use, and the other S ranks wouldn't be any use. The atmosphere was weird to say the least. All of them wanted to become Hurios one way or another, but knowing that there are big fish that most S ranks can't handle was something. It was surprisingly Chika who continued. We are becoming reliant on Izuku. Even if he is okay mostly with that, he won't be everywhere at once. Hitoshi nodded. Whilst I may not be the best at fighting the monsters, villains is another thing, and we all must help in one way or the other. It was weird seeing the usually tired and unmotivated teens say these things, but everyone nodded. They needed to become stronger. Suddenly shadow soldiers came from all of 1A's shadows, with Beast being the de facto leader being the strongest. He pointed at the screen, then pointed to himself. Understanding what it was saying, Katsumi spoke. Go! Help Maruko and the others. When the shadow came out of Rumi's shadow, it was Slimy, the shadow soldier that Izuku exchanged for a Leshi. Izuku knew that if anything came up during the time away, that Slimy would step in. So now was the time. He allowed Rumi to see that her alone won't do much now, as she couldn't fly, but with himself by her side, she won't die. Slimy, being made of slime, used it to his advantage, catching the trunk and going around it to attach itself. The next thing was the Nomu pulling in Slimy, who tried covering the Nomu to kill it. But as always, the Nomu had an ace up its sleeve, Wind. The wind was released from every part of the Nomu's build that got Slimy's slime away. Now going into a fist fight, Slimy saw that Rumi was back in the game. The rabbit woman shouted, Lunar Rush. Powerful kicks connected to the Nomu's body, pushing it back some, allowing the shadow to try and destroy the body of the Nomu. The regeneration factor, that was what Rumi hated the most. Herself and Slimy destroyed the torso of the Nomu, but it was regenerated within a second. We need some fire, Rumi muttered, and Slimy understood. Ryukyu tried it, going at the Nomu again to help her friend trying to claw the Nomu, but it being blocked by the arm. She was pushed back a bit, but this allowed Rumi to kick the head of the Nomu away. But to their frustration, the body regenerated from the neck down, telling them that this will be a harder fight than they originally thought. Hawks tried to use his larger wing to make a sword and slash, but the two backfired amazingly. The Nomu caught one of the two red wings and spun the hero away, getting a wing torn from the hero's body. Slimy sped to the Nomu and both went into a fist fight, making Slimy slowly the winner, but the trunk and the wind power was keeping the slime shadow from using its killing technique of absorbing the opponent. But the Nomu was also having hard time getting rid of the shadow, wind, and its general punches don't do damage, and the both went into a deadlock. Suddenly 20 shadows surrounded the Nomu and the captain, Beast and 2 Leshi being the elite knights, whilst the 17 others being 4 winged angels. The angels started to shoot light beams at the Nomu that surprisingly caused its regeneration to slow down. Beast jumped in and started to exchange blows, whilst the 2 Leshi extended their arms and held the Nomu down, whilst Slimy started to break down the skin of the Nomu. The angels during this time continued to save the civilians whilst shooting light beams trying to get the trunk Nomu down. It took one of the angels up close and a massive light beam into the head of the Nomu to make the Nomu fall down. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Nomu's body disappeared thanks to the shadows' shared skill of shared inventory. Whilst other shadows went into shadows, the angels stayed to heal up the injured. Sadly, they couldn't heal the wing back from Hawks, so Kigo will need to have it regrow naturally. Although, Slimy stayed with Rumi for a while to make sure the shitstorm was over. Then the reporters started to come closer and ask questions. With Dabi, he had a smirk on his face. He found out that without Izuku's shadows, then the S-rank heroes were nearly useless to a specialized Nomu. Dabi's mood was risen after Hawk's wing was ripped out and the hero couldn't even have it heal, but with natural growth. Kurogiri opened the gate and entered, seeing his leader. Tamura, after hearing the news from Dabi, can't help but smirk. Dabi had to leave as he knew that Slimy could beat him without the villain dying. So now Tamura thought, the infiltration into the Yakuza isn't that bad. Toga and Twice reported that they anticipate a raid from the heroes in the upcoming week. My strength is going up, but Izuku won't like what Hawks did. This won't affect us anyways, just the hero community. Then speaking to Dabi, contact La Brava, have her send the video into the TVs showing Hawks killing Izuku's dad. Dabi nodded. With that, he sent the video to the League's ally awaiting the news. With Izuku in the Earth Dragon's domain. You have entered the Great Earth Dragon domain. Rocks with lava streams coming from the hills. The sky was darker, and then once again the three minor species that had the power of an elite knight came rushing in their hundreds. The first species was totally brown with no wings, but they stopped first, sitting down and opening their mouths. That was a light yellow named lizard species, but Izuku understood why they stood far. They were long-range due to their shooting ability. Earth-shooting lizard. The next one had orange cracks in their skin. Sharp claws, but they stopped last, ready to prepare an attack. Lava lizard. The one that stopped just behind the lava lizards had a rocky outer shell and had a long tail. They looked similar to a pangolin. Rolling, rocking lizard. Having some of his shadows make a wall just in time for the hundreds of rocks being shot from the earth-shooting lizard's mouth towards him. Then Mizuchi froze the ground, freezing the lava that the lava lizard spat out. The giant dragon was sure and intimidating, with Izuku barely being larger than her eyeball. The wave of rolling, rocking lizards were killed down pretty easily with the lizard shadows freezing them or by another use of magic, as physical attacks were useless. Wanting to level up a skill or two, Izuku sent out shadows piercing many lizards. The captains all continued to slaughter them, but the army of those pesky lizards never seemed to die down. Until a new opposition came. Those Dracos all stood somewhere on the mountains and had their tails up and above their head, shooting rocks piercing some shadows. Izuku blocked a couple with his dagger even without the need of danger sense. Experience was key. Over-reliance on one thing can be a downfall. That is what Izuku believed. Earth manipulating Draco. With a turn of events, he infused his mana into the ground sprouting, would pursing many of the Dracos up on the mountains. The brownish creatures tried to move the earth to block from the wood, but it was fruitless. Most died one way or another, but a couple of them survived. So snipers? I wonder if they are any good close range. What happened next could be predicted with ease. More Earth Dracos came out of the earth, most probably digging through, and started to use earth manipulation to destroy some of the shadows. Danger! 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 The Great Earth Dragon was awakened. Great Earth Dragon Terrador. Terrador is the name of the Earth Element Guardian Dragon from the Legend of Spyro trilogy. The same size as his sister, Terrador stood strong with rock armor around his body, but had red lines that looked like cracks. The piercing brown eyes looked deep into Izuku's normal green. A smirk appeared on the human's face as he called out, "Domain of the Monarch." With that, a black circle that reached far allowed all of the summons to have a purple tint, increasing their strength by 50% more. Great Earth Dragon Terrador is using the skill Sandstorm. Barriers made of shadow from Izuku and Dracula, a barrier from Tusk, and finally water shots from the water serpents and the Eastern European monster shadows. That was a successful tactice, as not only did it protect the group from the harsh sand, but also the sneak snipper attacks. Jumping with Mizuchi, the both of them went towards the dragon, who sent earth boulders at them. Dodging out of the way, Izuku shouted, "Mizuchi, I want to try something. Go on, my liege." The dragon replied, smirking. Izuku jumped atop of Mizuchi and placed his hands on her head. He then shouted, "Susanoo!" With that, the ethereal figure covered the white dragon with black armor. The head of the dragon had a horn, and there was another pair of wings, allowing the two to fly faster. "This feels amazing, my liege," Mizuchi commented. And now the dragon went through a wall that Terrador created, shocking the other dragon until the two forces clashed, creating winds and pushing all other shadow under Captain Rank away. Gabriel looked worried at Izuku. Not paying attention to the multiple Dracos she shot down with the lightning magic. The two forces collided, and it seemed that no one is winning so far. Until Izuku heard a crack. Luckily, it wasn't from the construct that he made, but on the other dragons. Stepping backwards, Terrador revealed his wings and started to fly in the air. Mizuchi used her Absolute Zero, but the skill that the Earth Dragon produced shocked the duo. Great Earth Dragon Terrador is using the skill Absolute Defense. It is pretty controversial if a defense is absolute. For example, the Susanoo is one, but also the Infinity. However, the Earth that was somehow forming in mid-air protecting the monster was something to be impressed about. Gabriel came flying over, and while standing on the head of Mizuchi, she asked her lover, "What's the plan, darling? The defense is pretty amazing. Remember Tenchi. The best defense is a strong offense." With that, he called out, "Blue." And a blue sphere that was the size of a marble expanded, being as big as a golf ball. Both himself and Gabriel felt the pull, and with flicking it, the so-called absolute defense crumpled into nothing, allowing Itachi to shoot Amaterasu flames that was enhanced by Mikao's wind. Gabriel further enhanced it by sending concentrated light beams that could pierce even steel into the flames, masking their presence. A shout was heard from inside the fire attack, but much to their shock, lava was being shot around. Izuku lost over 10,000 MP from the shadow regeneration as all but captains and higher turned into smoke. Not wanting to lose any more mana from his shadows regenerating, he summoned his spear and threw it with spear throw, making it have a hole through its body. Using this opportunity, Izuku summoned Kusanagi and allowed it to extend, making it slash through the dragon's head, beheading it and killing it. All in all, this biome took Izuku and his group around 2 hours. You leveled up, you leveled up, you leveled up. Skill, Spear Throw has leveled up from LV.6 to LV.7. Deal extra damage by throwing your spear. As the skill's level increases, damage and accuracy will increase. 25 MP. Defeated. 2 out of 8. Walking closer to the dragon corpse, Izuku squatted down and spoke. "Arise and join your sister Terador." With that, a brown-black shadow arose the same size as his sister Mizuchi. The end of the tail increased in length and had a massive circular hammer with spikes. The biggest difference was that the dragon now lost its wings but gained the ability to travel underground. Now he arose the earth-manipulating Dracos, turning their name to be Earth Draco. They didn't change much, but they lost their wings, but something similar to what the tails had been. Now on their backs they had 2 of such guns, whilst the tail had extra spikes. The 3 lizards, rolling rocking lizards, had kept their shape. Lava lizards had too kept their shape but had orange lines through their skin. Earth-shooting lizards had a gun on their backs. Other than that, that was it. Pretty simple, but for low elite knights, that is another 60 low S ranks. Izuku thought to himself, he had a lot of space in Save Shadow, and with every level he gets the amount increases exponentially. A smile appeared on his face, as he also promoted a dozen or so shadows into a higher grade 2. Terador LV.3 Commander, 20 Rolling Rocking Lizard LV.6, Elite Knight, 20 Lava Lizard LV.6, Elite Knight, 20 Earth Shooting Lizard LV.6, Elite Knight, 50 Earth Draco LV.32, Elite Knight. You leveled up. How did I level up right now? Izuku asked to no one specifically. Gabriel came and spoke. Look in your inventory, darling. There is something happening in the outside world. Doing so, he got the body of the elephant Nomu. Izuku quirked an eyebrow. So a Nomu was released. That is why some of my MP was going down slowly. Getting a confused look from his girlfriend, he explained, as you know, I put Slimy into Rumi's shadow today morning and took a Leshy back just in case. When there was barely any fighting going on, my MP was being reduced at a concerning rate as the shadows here didn't take much damage. Are you sure the rabbit is alright, darling? Even though the duo may not always see eye to eye, the two had a healthy rivalry, and even Gabrielle respected Maruko. There are some power angels with them, so Rumi will be healed anyway. Izuku spoke in a gentle tone. Arise, Trunk. The Nomu with the trunk had its shadow rise and form into one of his shadow soldiers, adding another to his collection. Trunk LV.30, Elite Knight, near high-end Nomu. Then a gruff and definitely masculine voice spoke from behind the two. My liege, I thank thee for this opportunity to meet thine sibling. An older for formal language was spoken by Terador. Izuku smiled and spoke. I will be hoping to reunite all of you together. But which one of your siblings should we be heading to before we fight against our 2 elder siblings that can control the darkness and the light? I would recommend to fight our brother that can control wind. With my prowess in water can reduce the fire, whilst Terador can block the attacks. My liege. Mizuchi spoke. Izuku was happy that he had more shadows that could speak. Terador had a weird way of speaking, but at least he wasn't Baru, who wanted to kill anyone who even sent minor amounts of killing intent at his master. Okay, Mizuchi, let's go to the fire domain. With that, the pass allowed them to enter the Fire Dragon domain. You have entered the Great Fire Dragon's domain. Real world. La Brava, otherwise known as Manami Aiba. She was a fangirl for Gentle, but she had the ability to use computers that some hackers would be jealous of. When Dabi sent a video and asked her to put it instead of the news, she started doing it. There are some reasons why she would agree with it. She and Gentle met with Izuku by accident, and the Gentle soul had some tea with Gentle, not caring if he was a criminal. He heard the story from the both of them and helped them. Now La Brava was mad towards the HPSC, but especially Hawks, as it was a common fact that Hawks takes orders from the commission. Now it was her turn to inform everyone what the top hero organization did. So after 2 hours of planning and getting into some servers, she waited for the peak viewership and then posted the video. All major news channels, other popular channels, and electronic ads in city centers had one video with some subtitles explaining what was happening with a close-up of Hawks in perfect view. Monarch is probably in Nepal or China, so he won't know it until much later, she muttered out loud. As everyone knows, big news travel fast, especially when someone hacks into the big leagues, making more people see it what they want to have seen. La Brava theorized that the majority of Japan will know of it by the end of the day at the latest. The video started by a gray screen that seemed to be bugging out, then what seemed for the camera to be adjusting at an angle where you could see the hero and the one on the floor. A black suit colored red was Hisashi Midoriya, whilst the man standing in a cloak but could have some of his wings shown and face was Hawks. The hero got one of his wings from the body of Izuku's father with some blood being sprayed out. All sound-producing screens could hear the man lying down say, "I am sorry, Izuku. I love you." Then life escaped from the eyes of the man. Then the following words were heard from a distinctive voice. "Sorry, you didn't deserve this, Hisashi Midoriya. If your son wasn't this powerful, all would have gone according to my master's plan." The video zoomed into Hawk's face, then the hero left. During the video, the subtitles read, "The Hero Public Safety Commission ordered Hawks, the number 3 hero, to kill an innocent civilian. The man is named Hisashi Midoriya. The national rank hero Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as the Shadow Hero, Monarch Father. We believe the HPSC did this to show that they would do anything to control Monarch. A shitstorm is beginning to start. With 1A, all of them were chilling in the common room talking about the fight that Maruko, Ryukyu, and Hawks had with the Nomu. Until the TV turned gray. "Hey, what is go?" Denki quieted down. Everyone looked at the screen and became horrified. That's Uncle Hisashi. Katsumi spoke in a whisper, but it was as clear as day for everyone to hear. In her mind was something else. Not him too, from his best friend to now his second parent. "I will not explain further." Izuku's father. Shika spoke in shock. Now if her grandfather got out of jail, she will ask him to kill the HPSC first, after getting a blessing from him to allow her to marry Izuku, of course. Izuku doesn't know it yet, does he? Shoko asked everyone. Tenya shook his head. No, he is most probably in a gate, and as we know, there is no signal at all. What do you think we should do? Momo asked everyone. She was as worried as everyone else in the dorm. Mishiro asked in an uncertain tone, what do you think will happen to Hawks and the HPSC? We all know how powerful Izuku is. Heian nodded. He never had to go full out. The last time was most probably during I-Island, but after discovering the gravity abilities, he doesn't need to go full out even against S-rank opponents. A shiver run down all of their spines. Teachers' dorm. None of the teachers had any patrols today, but all were discussing student progress and lesson plans with the TV running in the background. After they heard, "I am sorry, Izuku. I love you." All became silent. The heroes watched the TV news about Hawk's killing of a student of theirs father. Aizawa and Nizu both knew that as the police contacted them, but Midnight asked with a stutter, "Is this true?" Aizawa sighed and nodded. "We were contacted by the police earlier on today. Hisashi Midoriya is no more." A sad tone was heard at the end, but some anger too. Hound Dog just started barking, but everyone heard what was said between the lines. Ignoring the barks, this is what he said. "The HPSC will pay for it." Nizu came down and nodded. "We have two options, everyone. Either we support Izuku Midoriya and release the post-mortem autopsy that had the evidence Hawks killed Izuku's father, but the funding from the HPSC will be none. Or we support the HPS. Nizu received glared that even made him shiver. "We will be supporting the problem child. The funding is nothing to what we earn without them. Add to that the gates that we close and the income we get from those and the support devices we create. Money has nothing for us." Shota stated with a glare. Power Loader then spoke up, "If you are worrying about income, we can create ways in support class. But I agree with Shota here. What teachers would we be if we didn't defend our students?" Present Mike nodded. "We took a vow that we will protect our students to the very end. If this means making the support of the public be against the HPSC, so be it." And so on. All of the teachers agreed, but it came down to All Might. "I have to agree with everyone, but imagine if we didn't do anything. Izuku would have more reason of not even helping Japan, and I am sure his closest friends would go with him. All Might spoke, and every teacher also realized that Izuku could do it and the Japan's trust in heroes would be at all-time low. During this time, Nizu posted the results and some fancy wording on the UA website. The evidence is increasing, but the people are realizing that it is not all heroes, but more specifically one organization, the HPSC. With Rumi, some tears escaped from her eyes. She barely cried, but having her boyfriend's father that acted like a dad to her die to the person she met barely a couple hours ago. Is that why the HPSC wanted the S-rank Hurios to meet up or anything? But she went to the hospital that Hawks was at with anger boiling to the surface, wanting to smash a kick into the wing hero. Much to her surprise, there was a crowd in front of the hospital shouting for justice for Izuku. A small smile went on her face, but jumped above them only to be stopped by men and women in black suits and guns pointed towards Miruko. What the hell is happening? That fucker should be placed in jail and with the HPSC. Rumi spoke out loud, making the crowd behind her support her. One of the people spoke, "This is not your problem. You better turn around and continue with your patrol. You are raising a gun and expect me to turn around. What would you do if someone killed someone who you saw as a father figure?" Rumi spoke louder and louder. There is no concrete evidence that it was Hawks. The man was shut by Rumi opening her phone and tossing it to that man who had his eyes widen and silently cursing. A man from behind Rumi placed a hand on her shoulder and spoke, "Let me deal with this Miruko." Then flashing a badge, "I am Detective Tsukachi. All Might asked me to deal with this case. Would you let myself and my bodyguard Miruko through?" Miruko remembered that guy and continued with the play. But the spokesman for the black suits people, they said, "No can do, we have our orders from Madam President and we are not allowed anyone through." HPSC. It was chaos in the building. It was an hour after the statement from UA was released and the public is in an uproar. Izuku Midoriya was starting to become one of the people's favorite heroes, and now the HPSC is being questioned about their activities. Not only did they have their special forces protecting Hawks that was going to be released into their care later on the day, they had to stop multiple people from breaking in, even the police. Now the public was questioning them as videos of their special forces pointing guns towards heroes and police officers that are there to arrest Hawks for murder that was even off the books. Now the public was waiting for their statement and Izuku's return from a gate. Madam President was cursing under her breath. Now she was making a way of blaming everything on a different party such as the League of Villains. With Tamura, he had to admit that he has some sympathy for Izuku, but he smiled that the HPSC is destroying themselves. Overhaul, who sat next to him, also smirked but wasn't seen due to his mask. So not only did the Nomu fuck with some S ranks and making Hawks not fit for action for some time, but the HPSC is being destroyed by themselves. Overhaul smirked. Internally, Tamura frowned as he didn't like the man, but he had to suck his pride for some time and continue. "I actually feel bad for Monarch. The HPSC destroyed the last living part of his family. I don't even want to be against him if he is angry and goes full out." For the first time in his life, Overhaul was hit with the realization that his quirk may not work with the shadows. "I may have a problem with destroying his shadows. You know that I can disintegrate stuff. His shadows are not affected and regenerate." Tamura muttered angrily. "We need to deal with Monarch then? The source of energy is clearly him." But internally, Overhaul thought, "I will need to get in contact with the guy in America. He could deal with Monarch for some time." With Izuku, "You have entered the Great Fire Dragon's domain." Everything was on fire, from red-orangey flames to the bright white flames that escaped from the mountaintops with some sort of ash. Like always, 3 lizard species that had the height of 1.5 meter all started to come closer to the group of shadows. They still had yellow names, and Izuku guessed that they will continue being yellow due to this dungeon continuing to evolve as Izuku does. The first one had an ashy appearance with wings on the back, but the main difference was that its throat was larger than other lizards. The second had a pure red appearance, red claws, red eyes, with the only speck of color was the white around the iris of their eye. Thirdly, the last lizard had a red color, but on their backs was what looked like a flamethrower. What the fuck? A flamethrower? What next? Sword lizards. Oh dear Izuku, you know that the writer loves fucking with the main character. Ash lizard. Blazing lizard. Flamethrowing lizard. My. I didn't expect to see this, darling. I thought they would be normal fire-spitting lizards. Gabriel commented. Izuku just smirked. "I cannot wait to test my flames with the fire dragon." It seemed that the army of the lizards are getting destroyed faster and faster with the increase, especially with the uncanny ability that Trunk has. The Trunk elongated, taking out multiple lizards. Summoning his fire, he shot it at some of the lizards, but to his surprise the ash lizard produced some of its ash, stopping the fire, protecting its kin. "Tenchi, you ready?" Izuku asked with a grin. "Yes. Let's kick some ass, darling." With that, the created a massacre that was no joke. Skill, hand-to-hand expert leveled up from LV.3 to LV.4, a passive skill that gives you 70% more experience when using only hands for any kind of combat against a villain or monster. This was pretty handy, as the experience also adds to the invisible bar that is Izuku's level. So with the additional 5% increase, a new notification came upon. You leveled up. This may be from them facing more opponents than the other two domains had, but it could also be that Izuku was actually fighting, making his experience for the next level increase faster. Danger! The small chong in Izuku's head, but also the small notification, was seen and felt. He quickly activated Infinity and turned around to see he just blocked a tail of a new species. Fire manipulating Dracos. He remembered that once it would have been hard defeating a S-rank opponent. Now it seemed like child's play. He summoned a dagger and with Vital Strike, another death of an orange Draco that the tail had a fire on the end. Izuku then extended his hands and used Darkness Overlord to kill dozens of the Dracos with spikes that came from the shadows. The lack of light makes more darkness, that is a rule of thumb, therefore the amount of darkness that is the shadows is lower thanks to the great amount of fire present. He sent out fire from fire manipulation that burnt some of the Dracos alive. Conan swept in and shot the survivors with her paper shuriken. Izuku sent a smile towards the purple shadow that caused a small blush to appear on her face. Unknown to Izuku, Gabriel saw this. The Great Fire Dragon was awakened. Great Fire Dragon Kai. Kai is a Scottish-inspired name that literally means fire dragon. The beast was as tall as his brethren, but the red scales had an occasional wisp of fire coming from them. The crystal red eyes looked at Izuku and his siblings. Then a massive wave of blue fire came. It was intercepted by Izuku's fire. The two forces clashed in the center of the battlefield. The majestic performance was soon over with Mizuchi dousing the fire whilst Terador shot earth spears towards his brother. Gabriel sent out some light spears and Izuku threw his spear. All was dodged by the agile fire dragon. Kai continued to shoot blue fire from his mouth downwards, causing some shadows to once again become shadows. Pain started absorbing the fire, protecting some of the shadows, whilst the rest tried to shoot the dragon down. Trunk, who was joined in by Dracula, tried to capture the dragon, but both were covered in ash. That with a click of Kai's teeth, a fiery explosion occurred. Izuku, seeing this, got in the air with Terador, Mizuchi and Kaisel having a fight in the air. It was something to see. The length of each dragon was at least 4 times longer than their height, and they covered the majority of the sky. Igris, who was on the ground, used his angelic sword and with a slash cut down the 50% of the remaining Dracos, but that costed him some of the shadows. But he did level up by 2 levels from that one move. Then massive ice spikes appeared, puncturing a lot of the monsters. Baruka appeared with a smirk towards Igris, who would have thought that the two would become fast friends. The air was chaotic, 2 large dragons and a wyvern against a large fire dragon in the air. The effects of the clash caused some of the shadows to disappear. Izuku, wanting to finish this fight soon, used a job-specific skill, Domain of the Monarch, and like a switch, all shadows had some purple tint to it. The boost of power made the battle in the sky turn into Izuku's favor faster than before. Wanting to try and level his 3rd skill, he used flight and flew with the beasts and was currently holding Samahata. The sword was shaving of the skin from the area boss and some blue blood was leaking out. Great Fire Dragon Kai is using the skill Evaporation of the Weak. Corking an eyebrow, Izuku used Infinity to block the blue flames that erupted from every cell of Kai. Not doing much to Izuku, he sent a cork burst of bloodlust, making the dragon weaker by 50%, allowing the young man to get in closer and trying to get some of his pent-up anger out. He used the Devil's Gauntlet special ability of increasing his immense strength by another 30%. Punching the dragon in the head, Kai flew head first into the ground dead, due to the shockwave of the punch munching his brain, making the monster brain dead. Great Fire Dragon Kai had been defeated. Defeated 3 out of 8. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Smiling, he said one word, arise. With that 60 lizards, 50 Dracos, and the boss all arose. Kai's form didn't change much with the exception of his wings being larger. The lizards all kept their original shape but grew 20 centimeters taller. Finally, the Dracos had more of the black smoke that contrasted with the orange shadow. Kai LV.5, Commander, Fire Dragon, 50 Fire Draco LV.33, Elite Knight, 20 Ash Lizard LV.7, Elite Knight, 20 Blazing Lizard LV.7, Elite Knight, 20 Flamethrowing Lizard LV.7, Elite Knight. But with the addition of the 111 new shadows, a new notification came into Izuku's sight. Skill. Shadow Extraction leveled up from LV.1 to LV.2. Job-specific skill. No mana required. A shadow soldier is created from a body without life by taking out its mana. The chance of failure increases the higher the target's stats are, and the more time passed since the target's death. Shadows able to be extracted. 914/1000, 914/2500. This lead to the job-specific skill to be leveled up. Izuku was actually getting worried of not being able to get more shadows. Skill. Save Shadow leveled up from LV.2 to LV.3. Job-specific skill. No mana required. You absorb created shadow soldiers and save them. Saved soldiers can be summoned and reabsorbed whenever and wherever the animator desires. The storage will increase at a faster rate. Save shadows. 914/916, 914/2000. Ignore the convenience of those skills leveling up. I thought it was an appropriate moment when those skills would level up again. Now I won't need to worry about the saved shadow limit, but I like the 20/20/20/50 method so far. Izuku thought to himself, just imagine if I became evil, gosh, no one would be able to stop me. Then Izuku smacked himself. What the fuck? Since when did I start becoming arrogant? I am sure there are more powerful beings in the world than myself. Oh, that was true. Izuku hasn't yet seen the supernatural properly. The only saving power he has to survive against the more powerful ones was his infinity, but it is still costly. Izuku is only a high commander grade himself and soon will reach the next level of rank. He is theoretically ranked as an international level hero/threat, but barely no one know of it his true power as he doesn't need to use the full capabilities of it. Mizuchi, Terador, Kai. Who do you think we should go to next? Izuku asked his three commanders. It was surprisingly Kai who replied, our sister who can control poisons, my liege. Her ability isn't harmful to us anymore. Izuku nodded. I too have resistance to all poisons, so let's go to your sister. With that, the army of 900 continued forward. If anyone would have seen the army, the three large dragons with tusk and fluffy being in a similar size would piss their pants. But with the hundreds of other shadows, anyone who wasn't foolish would run. But where? You have entered the great Poison Dragon domain. Straight away, you could see the ground burping green and purple smoke that could be identified as poison. One of Izuku's shadows touched it, and to their surprise, some of the skin corroded, but other than that, it regenerated. The sky was colored a dark blue-purple. Izuku could see dozens of small lizards flying downwards. One of the species didn't have any legs, but wings. The snake-like lizard was purple and constantly produced a purple gas from their mouths, but Izuku saw when it closed its mouth then the gas stopped being produced. Poisonous flying serpent. The next species produced liquid from all over their body. Sadly, they didn't have wings as their counterparts, but similar to the rolling rocking lizards, had a longer tail and thicker skin. The tail was wagging like an excited dog starting to spray the poisonous liquid at the shadows. Poison-spraying lizard. The final species was significantly smaller than the other two, only being half a meter tall and a meter long. It had fangs and more of bat-shaped wings. With the keen eyes of Izuku, he could see some kind of poison dripping down the fangs. Poisonous fanged lizard. Then hundreds, over 1,000 for sure, those species started to appear and surround the group. But as always, the shadows ranked lower than the LV.7 elite knights had some trouble, but the ones higher started to obliterate the enemy. Over 3 minutes when the commanders, general, and the liege just stood there chatting when the next wave of the lizards and the serpents appeared. Gabriel had to occasionally shoot 1 or 2 serpents down with her light magic whilst Izuku continued with his darkness overlord shadow training, trying to level that skill up. Finally, some of the Dracos started to appear. The purple skin Dracos had characteristics of all 3 of the lizard/serpent. That was a cannon-type mechanism on its back that could shoot blobs of poison, thicker claws and fangs that could produce poison, and from its mouth you could occasionally see poisonous gas being produced. Poison-manipulating Draco. Sending more shadow spikes that impaled dozens of the Dracos, the notification that Izuku was waiting for actually came. Skill. Darkness Overlord leveled up from LV.1 to LV.2, evolved. The combination of the skill, Shadow Manipulation and skill, Black Whip, second gift from All Might's predecessors, evolved into a superior control over darkness and its shadows. Now, Izuku could feel more from his shadow tendrils and the shadows around. Using that to his advantage, from every enemy shadow in the radius of 300 meters, a spike that produced spikes from its edges was produced. This slaughter efficiently killed off 458 enemies. Damn, Izuku muttered. You leveled up? Impressive, my liege. I feel that my sister will be coming soon. Mizuchi commented to her master. The Great Poison Dragon was awakened. Great Poison Dragon Jinx. Jinx has a hidden meaning of deadly poison too, woohoo. The dragon, who was purple in color, started to come out of her cave. The horns that she had on her head was something to be impressed about. All horns had the length of 2 meters at the minimum, with a dark purple at the core and a light purple at the ends. The 2 wings produced a purple gas. She had claws that could dig deep into anything, and her tail had dense muscle to smash anything away. Truly a deadly but a beautiful combination. A poison named Jinx. Straight away, Jinx shot straight into the air, followed by the purple dragon shooting globs of poison down into the soilders. This poison acted more like acid for some reason, but nevertheless the 3 shadow dragons and the wyvern shot straight up to defeat their sister. Izuku, on the other hand, wanted to try something. With Darkness Overlord, he started to cover himself with the shadows and straighting to solidify them. The shape doesn't look too bad, it gives me extra protection. Then Izuku started to move with this piece of armor. I am slower by 10% than usual. I guess I need to invest into armor if I want my base protection to be higher. This is what Izuku was thinking. He swatted a glob of poison shot by Jinx like it was nothing, and began to think, what should I do? I could still level my other skills higher. I still have 3 more All Might's Predacaster quirks to receive apparently. This time he slapped a lizard coming his way, killing it. On Wednesday, I am taking my classmates to a gate, and this Saturday, I have a meeting with chat. Izuku still doesn't know about his father's death nor the S-rank meeting. Oh well, if I get stronger now it will be a chill week. With that, Izuku used sprint, flight, and gravity manipulation to get towards Jinx, and with the quick use of his Manjiko Sharingan, he summoned the Susanu's hand that had the spear. The spear went through the skin, digging into the heart of the dragon, killing it. Defeated, 4 out of 8. You leveled up? You leveled up? You leveled up? He then looked around and saw the damage caused by the 4 dragons and the wyvern. Izuku's sweat dropped and spoke. Sorry, was in my head. The others just shook their heads, seeing their liege. Shall not worry, my liege. Terador spoke in his formal tone. Using flight to lower himself down, Izuku spoke, arise. With that, 20 of each lizard species, 50 Dracos and Jinx arose. All looked similar, with only poisonous fanged lizards being a little longer with larger fangs. Jinx LV.7 Commander Poison Dragon, 50 Poison Draco LV.35, 20 Poisonous Fanged Lizard LV.9, 20 Poisonous Flying Serpent LV.9, 20 Poison Spraying Lizard LV.9. Yash, another domain completed. Which one should we go to next? Izuku asked his draconic friends. Jinx spoke up. Her voice had some seduction in it, but Izuku thought it was how she normally talked. We should go to our wind brother. He can negate our lightning brother's attack easier than we could. Izuku nodded, and the group went towards the wind domain. With Nijire, at the beginning of the weekend, she was tasked to go to an island of the coast of Japan with 2 of her classmates. Luckily, it wasn't Mirio or Tamaki, but the duo was boring for her to hand out with. The trio was tasked to help out with the multiple gates that was present, as they were joined with the local heroes to help them. So that was Nijire's Saturday. Only when she came out of her 3rd dungeon that day could she see what the news was on about. After checking the UA website, a lone tear came out of her eye. She may have not met Hisashi more than twice, but she knew that it was too early for him to go. She knew that Izuku would probably arise him to have a final talk with him, but Nijire knew that Izuku didn't like people be turned into a shadow. Heck, she knew that Izuku barely turned the Akatsuki into his shadows, but Izuku knew that he has to have strong allies for a reason or another. Seeing that her harem sister was in a fight earlier that day, she called Rumi to make sure she was alright. Nijire knew that Izuku was going to complete a gate from his system today, and as both were busy, they couldn't go with him. Thinking about that, Nijire had some thoughts as she overheard the conversation between 3 of Izuku's classmates. Too bad for the 3. Izuku always seems to escape them when they are trying to ask him out. That kind of cheered her up from the depressing thoughts that her future father-in-law was dead. She sighed and started to stretch her muscles. There was another D-rank gate that they needed to complete today, as on Sunday it would break. I hope the teachers are being smart of what they are doing. With that, she gone to eat something quickly. With Nizu, Izuku did mention that he will be gone the weekend. He didn't know how long that gate would take him, Nizu thought to himself. It was 10 p.m. in Japan, and he was going to bed shortly to keep his pristine coat shiny. Typing away on his keyboard, he was looking at some documents that he was sent some time earlier. So the HPSC is cutting funding completely towards UA for the stunt. More blackmail. Then looking at another screen, UA isn't doing that badly with money. More donations have been placed in thanks mainly due to Izuku studying here. Most of All Might's salary that isn't spent on Might Towers is also being sent in here. That was something that a lot of AU alumni did send some donations to UA so the next generation would have better equipment or other facilities. Even the Moody Endeavor was sending around 10% of his disposable income so that Shoko and Shoto had it better. All in all, UA had a lot of money to spend. Niza was planning something with the help of Izuku and Power Loader that needed some of the money, but that would still take a minimum of 3 months to implement. With 1A, it was late at night when everyone was still downstairs discussing about the hero fight with the Nomu and what happened to Izuku's father. Denki asked something more random. Izuku sure does have it shit, all because he became a national level, his family became in danger, responsibilities, and other stuff. Imagine all of the stress he is going through. Denki was becoming smarter as he didn't fry his brain that often anymore. Tenya continued, that may be true, just imagine his reaction of discovering what happened to his father. Does anyone know his timetable for the next week? Momo asked anyone. Katsumi remembered some bits. He is going back to France on Saturday. On Wednesday we are going in with him to a gate, but that is what he told me. Momo nodded. When he comes back, let's make him relax. That is such a manly thing to do. What does he like to do to relax? Ejiro asked as he was unsure of what Izuku likes. Katsumi comes in and rescues the class. Since he died, Izuku loves hiking. Although a somber tone was used for some reason. Ochako asked in a gentle tone, since who? Shaking her head, a glare was sent to Mina. It is none of your business, Pink Cheeks. Watching the stars. Heian spoke lightly. Cuddles. Shoko spoke out loud. There was some face palms heard in the class. In Russia, 2 people looked over at a gate. It is reading S rank, sir. The younger woman had a worried look on her face. Grunting, the man spoke, get Team Alpha, this is the first S-rank gate in Russia, so we will need to deal with it. After a second of consideration, if anything goes wrong, I will be meeting Vladimir. Wonder who would win if Vladimir would face Monarch. A chuckle was heard, not the creepy, but a fascinating one. The woman was in shock. Team Alpha was a group of 12 S-rank heroes who also go by the name of Hunters. The group could do anything they wanted within limit, of course. But when the government called for the group to do a mission, then they have to complete it. They have never failed so far. Then some snow came and the 2 disappeared into thin air. With the creator, the power of his is weakening once again. He pushed a bit of his power to gradually enter into his system. That is a reason why Izuku was leveling up faster than average now. A couple of months is how long I can hold them. Please get stronger, my creation. You have entered the Great Wind Dragon domain. It was windy. Not the light breeze or the tornadoes that some may experience. It was an annoying type of wind that makes you want to close your eyes but continue like it was nothing. While strong winds would try to get you off your feet, your senses would be up to the maximum. But here the breeze was trying to mess with the senses of one Izuku Midoriya. The surroundings was most probably the most beautiful so far. The green fields that had some water running through. The sky for some magical reason was all blue, allowing you to see some flying lizards. And again, that was the thought of one Izuku Midoriya as he sent out a massive pulse of bloodlust that caused some of the lizard or the serpents to fall to the ground. I wonder if that skill will be evolving or something. With that, the massacre happened all over again. As this was happening, the levels of the army grew, allowing less of the shadows to be easily destroyed by the wind attacks. Wind blasting serpent. Wind cutting lizard. Mini tornado lizards. As the name suggests, the light blue wind blasting serpents had no feet, but their wind attacks had the most wide area power. The wind-cutting lizards had the ability of using their wings to make air slashes, being able to cut down some of the shadows. Finally, the most annoying mini tornado lizards created tornadoes, and with them being in the eye of the storm. The poisonous and the flame type of lizards had the most trouble with dealing with the wind. This made them get inside the guard of the wind type, defeating some. The waves of those increased exponentially, even making some of the more lower-level captains sweat, if they could, of course. Sometimes number is the key to be able to win, but as luck has it, the general and the commanders took waves of the enemies down without a scratch being done. Sometimes I feel like I am just meant to destroy. I wonder how Dad's doing. He should be meeting with me this week. Oh, if he knew. Izuku made a bow and arrows with Darkness Overlord, but this time didn't add any fire, as wind can deflect fire to some extent. With that, multiple arrows started to hit the enemy. Sadly, that didn't make a scratch in the numbers, but allows Izuku to practice his hand-eye coordination. Right? Wind manipulating Draco. Now the second level of annoyance comes after an hour of slaughtering its brethren. The light blue slim-figured mini-dragons that had the most aerodynamic wings from all of the dragons came flying from above. Izuku would call them suicidal, but they actually did damage. like the kamikaze attacks, trying to swing down and cut a few heads but most of the time flying to their deaths. Even if the Dracos had sharp claws, most of the army had a way of protecting against that type of enemy. Izuku quickly used flight to join the fight from above. Using gravity manipulation, he started to pull the surrounding Dracos towards one point, then using red crushed the 50 or so Dracos. I should really increase the passive skill of hand-to-hand, and who else than the ones that could kill most heroes. With a smirk, Izuku went in unarmed, with the only protection was the armor he wore. Flight was used to make the fighting field even, and Izuku started a beautiful dance that took many Dracos down. Crushing the bodies, snapping wings, using the tail as a bat, those were a few of the many ways Izuku was dealing with the army of the wind manipulating Dracos. After some time, some peace came over the area, with Izuku appreciating the scenery, as if you looked at it properly, ignoring the dead lizards, serpents, and Dracos' bodies. Izuku started to think more. I wish I could see the experience I gain or need for every skill or even my level. That would be useful to know. I think of adding this when Izuku reaches a certain level. What do you think? Should it be a percentage or bar? Hand-to-hand expert LV.4, 23%. Hand-to-hand expert LV.4, LV.4 equals LV.5, 20%. So yay or nay? Danger. Like always, Izuku realized that most probably the boss dragon awakened. Looking around in the air, he couldn't see the dragon yet. The Great Wind Dragon was awakened. The Great Wind Dragon Aurora. Straight away, to everyone's surprise, over 60% of the army that included 2 commander-class dragons became shadows. Seeing that 30,000 MP had gone to restore the shadows, Izuku activated his Sharingan and saw a large light blue dragon. The small legs that Aurora possessed seemed like it was only used for moving into a more lying position. The wings, on the other hand, was something to be amazed at. The long but sharp light blue wings that shined like 1,000 stars was ready to fly down to destroy more of the army. Not wanting to waste more MP for the shadow restoration, Izuku pumped MP into flight and shot towards Aurora. The speed that Aurora possessed was something to also be amazed. It was as fast as Izuku using Sprint, Hero's Boots Boost, a weapon to fight the opponent that also gives a 10% boost on the ground. In air, he was no match. Yet, this was his goal now, to be able to fly as fast as Aurora. Sending a pulsed bloodlust to hopefully slow down the opponent, he had to dodge a wind slash that came from the unaffected dragon. Seeing that some of his shadow soldiers turned into shadows, he shouted, "Concentrate on getting the others dealt with. I will defeat Aurora." He knew that Gabriel would want to help him, as she was the fastest in the army surprisingly. Even if she was a general, the rank lower than the commander dragons. Gabriel was meant to be one of the fastest in the angelic circle. Now Izuku knew that there would be a faster shadow, of course if Izuku arose Aurora. Flying some distance, making the dragon follow Izuku, but before coming closer to Izuku, another wind slash was sent towards the army of shadows. Luckily, Terrador blocked most of the attack, saving a lot of the shadow soldiers. Izuku TSK and shot multiple gravitation blasts of blue towards the dragon. Aurora dodged all of them in a graceful manner that Izuku could become hypnotized with the way her movements been. Izuku could barely see Aurora with his normal sight, so the Sharingan was a needed bet. Then the monarch remembered something that made a smirk crawl on his face. Domain of the Monarch. This may be the most powerful skill, excluding the shadow saving and extracting, that allowed Izuku have his army strength be 50% greater. Summoning his spear, Izuku rushed towards the dragon, and when he wanted to stab it towards Aurora, Izuku summoned Kusanagi in the air and used mana to extend it the length, making the dragon barely dodge. Being able to communicate mentally with his shadows was a boon, as Aurora thought that no shadow would help Izuku, but the Greenette asked for a couple of seconds head start, so an advantage could be made. The one that arrived was Mizuchi and Gabriel. Mizuchi was the only useful dragon that won't have any attacks being. Terrador didn't have wings. Kai's fire could have been turned back towards the allies, and same with Jinx. Therefore, when Aurora was hit from behind with a large spear of ice and then had a wing slashed from Gabriel, she showed it by having her large eyes widen further. Then in the ground, when Aurora hit, a massive crater was formed. Using this opportunity, Terrador caused multiple earth spikes to be impaled inside of the Wind Dragon, finally killing it. The Great Wind Dragon Aurora has been defeated. 5 out of 8. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Skill. Flight has leveled up from LV.3 to LV.4. Ability to use the air like a playground. An evolved first gift of the 6 from All Might's predecessor. 10 MP per minute of use. Smiling slightly, Izuku spoke. Arise. Not only did Aurora arise, but the specific amount of lizards, serpents, and Dracos too. Izuku decided that he would arise a higher number of the light and dark army compared to the elemental ones. Aurora LV.9, Commander. 50 Wind Draco LV.37, Elite Knight. 20 Wind Blasting Serpent LV.11, Elite Knight. 20 Wind Cutting Lizard LV.11, Elite Knight. 20 Mini Tornado Lizard LV.11, Elite Knight. Smiling at them, Izuku saw the differences in appearance. Aurora had no more legs and what seemed to be stronger wings on her back. The Wind Dracos had stronger wings but also sharper claws. The only serpent race of the 3 low elites had longer wings, whilst the wind-cutting lizard had sharper wings. Finally, the mini tornado lizards had a slimer body that covered a larger surface area for the optimum use of the winds. You sure were fast then, Aurora. Izuku chuckled as he patted the large light blue dragon nose. Then looking around, Izuku asked just to make sure, "We have the lightning one next, right?" He saw that some of his clothes had cuts on them, most probably from the wind attacks. "Yes, my liege, our brother who controls lightning is the final out of the 6 younger siblings. Then we have our older siblings." Izuku nodded to Kai, who replied. Izuku looked at his fatigue level and nodded. It was fatigue, 9 out of 100. He wasn't concerned, as per level he gets it lowers automatically by 10. "Let's go to the lightning domain. After that we can rest." Getting nods from his soldiers, the group of 1100 went towards the last domain. You have entered the Great Lightning Dragon domain. It was only a 30-minute walk with the domain pass, but this domain looked a mess. Dark clouds soared over them, with lightning strikes being seen in the sky and occasionally hitting the ground. The dark atmosphere was only enhanced with the mountains that lacked any form of life bar the enemies. Dark blue, dark violet, and dark purple was seen coming towards them, with lightning already trying to hit the shadows. The front lines that was made up of wind dracos and wind-type lizards all formed some type of wind wall that was only enhanced with by the angels. Kisame shot a massive water wave at the lizards that when Aurora blew some cold wind on it, turning the water in ice, impaling some of the lizards. Lightning Lizard Archer. Lightning Fury Lizard. Lightning Blasting Lizard. The Archer Lizard was dark blue. The dark purple was the Fury, whilst the Blasting Lizard was dark purple. The 3 colors allowed some sort of camouflage in this specific domain. Taking the light yellow named lizards was easy. Even Kaisel, that had a lower level compared to the other lizards, clawed some to death. But sadly some injuries were sustained. Suddenly, the Lightning Fury lizards started to fly, and their speed was of a high elite knight/low captain. This destroyed some of the shadows as the Fury was covered in lightning, but its defense was the lowest out of the 3 lizards, allowing them to be cut down easily. Izuku, seeing that a lot of the lizards were dead, he saved some trouble and spoke, "Arise." With that, out of the couple of hundred that died, 60 of the lizards arose as with Izuku instructions. The color palette stayed the same but became darker to fit with the shadow theme. 20 Lightning Lizard Archer LV.12, Elite Knight. 20 Lightning Fury Lizard LV.12, Elite Knight. 20 Lightning Blasting Lizard LV.12, Elite Knight. Smiling at his lizardy friends, the 60 joined in the fight against their ex-brethren. This allowed Izuku to continue with his training. Gravity manipulation was handy. Throwing some lizards that could cause low S ranks trouble like it was nothing made Gabriel giggle from behind him. "You are having fun, darling." She flew downwards, standing near Izuku. Smiling at his girlfriend, Izuku spoke, "I am trying to level my skills up." "Anyways, what you feeling that you are not the strongest in the army, Tenshi?" A cute pout appeared on Gabriel's face. "I actually don't mind, darling. I am satisfied being near you, although we would have to see what was the deal with the appearance of Trunk." She didn't mention, "I am also happy that this is taking a long period of time. The plans of the 3 classmates of Darling won't happen this week." Gabriel actually didn't mind them, don't get her wrong, but it was quite funny making their attempts of asking Izuku out be prolonged. Lightning Manipulation Draco. Out of the sky, Dracos that were colored dark purple with some sparkles from their skin flew downwards, shooting gusts of electricity. Soon the sky was filled with all of the Dracos and angels battling it out. Sasori somehow managed to make his puppets to soar upwards and start to shoot some Dracos down. More lightning started to cover the sky, with Aurora, Jinx, Kai, and Mizuchi all starting to take to the air. Izuku, realizing what was happening, used float to fly up, soon joined by Gabriel. Danger! The Great Lightning Dragon was awakened. Great Lightning Dragon Ashni. The word Ashni meaning lightning, it had Hindi origins. The lightning was filled with lightning, making the bleak surroundings to light up from the light being produced. A massive roar was heard, then the silhouette of Ashni was seen. Great lightning dragon Ashni is using the skill. Terror from above, all of the clouds started to grumble, until lightning was being produced hitting the ground consistently. Izuku used Infinity, that also covered up Gabriel as he held her hand. The majority of the lightning strikes were aimed where the 5 commanders, the general and the liege stood. The 5 commander dragons barely took any damage, while some like Pain took none as he absorbed the lightning. Great lightning dragon Ashni is using the skill 1000 lightnings. He sure likes to use his skills. Izuku joked about whilst the 1000 lightnings shot out of the mouth of the large dragon that had shiny skin that resembles a clear night sky. This time those lightning strikes did do damage to the army, but all of the shadows moved and not stood like complete idiots waiting for the enemy to make the attack ready. Aurora shot a massive wind wall to block Ashni's lightning, blocking some, with Terrador shooting earth spikes from the ground. Izuku sent out a couple of reds to make the lightning dragon move. Kai went flying forwards and roared a massive wave of fire that was countered by the majestic Ashni's lightning attack. The 2 attacks clashed in the middle, making an explosion to a cure that had Deidara have stars in his eyes. Using this opportunity, Aurora pushed wind, making Kai's fire stronger, whilst Jinx infused some of her poison into the attack. You could see that Ashni was having trouble and tried to retreat, but Mizuchi stopped him by being behind him and shooting spikes of ice at her brother. Roaring in pain, Ashni tried to get some airspace but soon was punched by Izuku towards Gabriel, who used her light magic to cause further damage into the lightning dragon's body. Terrador once again shot some earth constructs, but this time were cannons. Ashni was dodging them as his life was depending on it, but with the quick use of Kai's fire launchers, one of the WinFS of Ashni was burnt, allowing Izuku to throw his spear through the body of Ashni, killing it. Defeated. 6 out of 8. The great lightning dragon Ashni was defeated. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Lowering himself down, Izuku walked up to the body of Ashni and said one simple command: arise. With that, a shadow that was the sparkliest, shiniest, magnifique came out somehow. Ashni is what Izuku chose for the name of the dark purple shadow soldier. The only other color was the electric blue eyes the lightning dragon held that could pierce any being its presence looked upon. Ashni LV.11. Commander. My liege. Ashni spoke whilst bowing. Izuku smiled and patted the dragon on its snout. Good to have you here, Ashni. Now arise. With the same command, 50 Dracos arose to join Izuku's shadow army. The color became darker. It seemed like they were one with the night, but also visible to some extent. 50 Lightning Draco LV.39, Elite Knight. Let's rest up, guys. I would like to get some sleep. Izuku smiled at his shadows, who bowed and formed a perimeter of some kind. Next day. This gate follows the natural flow of time and not the red gate type, FYI. Izuku woke up with Gabriel by his side. Smiling lightly, he kissed her forehead and sat up. Looking around, he saw that all of the bodies let from the fight were collected and placed in his storage area. Like every other domain, Izuku left a dozen or so shadows to collect the bodies and place it in his inventory so he could sell it and get some gold out of it. He still has no idea where the sold items go, but Izuku theorized that the materials he gave into the system somehow is remade into his stats. Crazy, right? Seeing that his girlfriend is waking up, he spoke in a gentle tone. Morning, sleepyhead. Good morning, darling. Gabriel sat up whilst trying to get out the sleep out of her eyes. A light kiss was shared between the two when Izuku got up and started to stretch his body up. We have 2 more dragons to go to, the light and the dark ones if I am not mistaken. Izuku then looked at one of his commanders. Which one do you think we should go up against next? He started to prepare some breakfast for him to eat. Gabriel joined him soon. It was Mizuchi who answered, I recommend for us to deal with our sister who controls darkness. I do warn you, my liege, her army will be structured much different. Kai nodded his head. The same is with our other elder sister, my liege. The 2 of them had lived for much longer than us 6, making them have stronger armies on their beck and call. Ashni spoke up next. It is like yin and yang. It will be hard to defeat one without the other. But with the angel forces, they could help deal more damage to the dark forces, my liege. Izuku nodded and smiled at them. Thanks, guys. Let's start heading to the darkness domain them. During the flight there, Izuku ate the light breakfast he prepared so he could be ready for the next 2 fights. Smirking, he looked up and thought, would you be proud of me, bro? With that, his eyes sharpened as he looked at the area he was going into. You have entered the great darkness dragon domain. He had shivers going up his spine. Everything was black. The water's black, the ground dead black and full of skeletons. The sky cloudy and dark, blocking the moonlight. Looking around, Izuku activates his Sharingan and spoke to his army. "Get ready, some are coming." Gabriel, who was the de facto leader for the angels, shouted, "Get ready, angels!" With that, magic circles appeared from those who she specified. Darkness-bringing lizard, dark sniper lizard, assassin lizard. Those three were light yellow in name, whilst the Draco was a solid yellow. The three types of lizards did look nearly the same, but the sniper type had a tail similar to the earth-shooting lizard, and the assassin had sharper claws. Darkness-manipulating Draco. Corking an eyebrow, Izuku thought, are those the lowest of the bunch? The pure black scales that shone no light back was a scary sight to behold for a lesser man. The pure black strong wings of the 2-meter-tall Draco, it also seemed to have spikes coming out of its back. Izuku looked at the ground and widened his eyes fractionally. They were dark yellow and light orange names. He knew that the colors started to mean nothing, as defeating a red name in 5 minutes was nothing to him nowadays with his skills. Serpents of Darkness. 3-headed serpent. Black Eye Crocodile. The two serpents looked nothing like the previous serpents in his army. The first difference was their length. It was comparing a minicar to a London bus. Second alley, one of them had 3 heads, crazy right. Lastly, a crocodile type. They lived in the waters, but Izuku knew from the eyes that they have a few skills that make them to be in the captain class. It was still weird for him that only a couple months ago he could barely defeat a knight class, and now he is facing monsters that could give All Might a run for his money. So the barrage of attacks began. It seemed like the both armies are in some kind of standstill until the commanders of Izuku's army used one of their special moves, destroying 30% of the forces. Some escaped or had darkness protect them, especially the captain class serpents and crocodiles. The lizards are killing of the weaker of Izuku's shadows, making Izuku's MP deplete faster than any other domain, whilst the Dracos held of the 600 other Dracos to a standstill. The captain class shadows that numbered 26 strong had a much lighter time dealing with the captain class. Izuku, Gabriel, and the commanders interfered when necessary or when a free area was given access. What made the crocodiles so dangerous was their strength, near impenetrability, and the dark mist that was produced from their mouths. That mist acted similar to the poison from the poison dragons, making the shadows start to desadalfy, whilst the serpents held up to their mythological standpoint as their strength, venom, and intelligence was higher than was high in the captain level. Surprisingly, or not so, Baru and Mikao were the main driving forces against them, with a surprising shadow, Deidara, who blows his enemies from their insides. Trying to make the fight towards his side, Izuku concentrated in his right hand, making a red appear. Then in his left hand a blue appeared. Slowly, he moved the hands closer together to form what he was trying to make for a long time, purple. Seeing that he made a wrong mixture to combine the two, and not wanting to have it all blow up in his face, Izuku flicked them. The red ball of repelling gravitational force shredded multiple monsters, whilst the blue ball absorbed 5% of the enemies into it. I guess I still have a long way to go. That was the only thought going through Izuku's head. Seeing as one of the lizards from the assassin class was getting close, Izuku summoned a dagger and stabbed it straight through the monster's chest using Vital Strike. Yeah, he needed to level his skills up. Arise! With this simple command, a new force just joined Izuku, making the tides turn more in Izuku's direction. He was using float to hover above ground with his dark hair with green tips flowing with the battle wind. His eyes had a blue tint to it with some fog coming out of it, but with an overused skill he said, "Domain of the Monarch." Sea of purple was what was seen. No matter what color the creature was before now, they all had a purple glow in them. 20 Darkness bringing Lizard LV.14, Elite Knight. 20 Dark Sniper Lizard LV.14, Elite Knight. 20 Assassin Lizard LV.14, Elite Knight. 50 Darkness Draco LV.1, Captain. 50 Serpents of Darkness LV.10, Captain. 50 Headed Serpent LV.10, Captain. 50 Black Eye Crocodile LV.10, Captain. The addition of 260 new shadows allowed Izuku's army to shine as they supposed to, ripping, slashing, and killing all of their opponents. I wonder what is next? Izuku thought to himself as he sent out his lance of Longinus spear with spear throw and fire manipulation skills placed into it. Usually Dracos show up by now, but I won't lie, at this rate only Gabriel, the dragon commanders, and some of my captains can survive this onslaught. Like his prayers been heard upon, a new species appeared. Danger! Izuku turns 180 degrees around and blocks with Samahata from a slash from a 3-meter-tall monster. It was pure black, with the only visible color was the whites in the eyes, but that was still barely visible. Activating his Sharingan, Izuku saw that there was some kind of mist coming out of the dragon. He still had yet to realize that he was in one of the enemy monarch's armies. With the creator, the bearded old man that looked to have aged even more spoke to no one. You may not be able to defeat them all at once with your current skills, but defeating some of the armies of my children will surely slow them down. Although he did feel pity that Izuku's father died, as he saw everything that was going in the world. This said creator was the thing that made the world, universe. This includes the second strongest being after itself, aka the sealed trihexa, Ophis, Great Red, the monarchs, the biblical god, Zeus, and so on at the beginning of time, or more specifically after sneezing and whipping the dinosaurs out. He couldn't help but chuckle to see his chosen champion reaction, seeing that humans are not the only species. Back with Izuku, Dark Apprentice Hatchling. Seeing the name being orange, Izuku pulled out Samahata to his other to try and slash at the monster in front of him. But to his surprise, the hatchling dissolved into dark mist. This is similar to my Kamui ability. Izuku thought as he flew down to earth, and seeing that his army is starting to get overwhelmed, he placed both hands on the floor. Using with style from Obito's power, he used just over 10,000 MP to make a forest that had wooden spikes coming from its branches, killing more of his enemies. You leveled up. Using infinity to not get hit by the sniper lizard's shot, he turned around. With gravity manipulation, he started bringing up the enemy dragons and finally created a blue, destroying many in that instance. He looked over at his girlfriend and saw she was dealing with half a dozen hatchlings. He recalled his spear and shot it at some of the apprentices, killing one, but the others turned to mist to only solidify in another area. Thanks, darling. Gabriel smiled and formed a large magic circle shooting out. Izuku smirked at his girlfriend. No problem, Tenchi. With this, the grind continued for some time. The apprentice dragon that had the ability of turning into shadows to not get hit by any attacks was a pain. The positive was that the angels are gaining more experience compared to the other shadows. This is due to their light magic being harmful for the entities born of darkness. If Izuku and his army went towards the light domain first, only the vampires that have some sort of shadow manipulation could deal damage, which is significantly less than the angel shadow population. After some time, Izuku figured out a more efficient way of dealing with the dark apprentice hatchlings. Using the spear that has light imbued in it, he used sprint to start defeating his enemies faster. This resulted in a skill leveling up. Skill: Weapons Expert leveled up from LV.5 to LV.6. This furthermore increased Izuku's speed to 15% when he has a weapon. Looking over his shoulder, he saw Igris and Baruka fighting hand by hand. He may need to get more of the hatchlings compared to the other species, but he will have 2C. Danger! He awaited this. Izuku knew that he will have to fight one of the two elder sisters of his commanders, but he did not expect this. The Great Darkness Dragon was awakened. Great Darkness Dragon Acnologia. Don't hate me on using the dragon's name from Fairy Tail. Acnologia was nearly 1.5 of the size of her younger siblings. For massive jet black wings sprouting from its back in such a fashion you could mistake them as clouds. Izuku from the first glance could see that Acnologia will be the strongest enemy he has to face. Now maybe he would need to fight at full strength. Finish of the everyone else and protect the angels. The enemy knows that they are the focal point to our attack. Izuku said that as he used fire manipulation to weaken and destroy some shadow attacks. One might ask about why isn't Izuku using Darkness Overlord? That is simple. The hatchlings apparently had the same control power as him over that element. Hatchlings? That was Izuku's thought. Ashni, Aurora, and Kai, can you deal with your elder sister for a minute? After getting 3 nods, Izuku lowered himself downwards and spoke one word, turning the tides of the battle once again. Arise. Like Izuku wanted, 100 of the hatchlings arose. The reason for the number? Because it was cool. The hatchlings stayed the same size, but now their skin color was pure black, but their eyes had an electric blue whenever they are not hiding. 100 darkness hatchlings, LV.25. Captain, go! With this simple command, the 100 hatchlings rushed and started dealing with the enemy. Izuku joined the 3 dragon commanders fighting their elder sister, Acnologia. Darkness seeped out of her mouth, ready to strike, but one thing was clear. She did not expect 30 hatchlings to rush into her, biting her full force on the sides. A massive roar was heard. Izuku used this opportunity and threw his spear at the neck of the dragon. Some of the damage was mitigated by Acnologia turning some of her body into shadows, but Terador showed multiple earth spikes through her body that was on the floor. Aurora shot massive wind cuts powered up by Kai's fire. This was the death of Aurora. Going to the still body, Izuku spoke, Arise, Acnologia. You leveled up. You leveled up. You leveled up. Great Darkness Dragon Acnologia has been defeated. Defeated 7 out of 8. Acnologia LV.30. Commander, Darkness Dragon. The massive black shadow came out with 2 pairs of black wings coming out of her back. The imposing figure was soon changed as Izuku came closer. A smile came on the large entity face, my liege. Acnologia bowed her head, showing the proper respect. The greenette smiled back at her and nodded. Now we have one more domain to deal with, then we can leave. Nods and bows came all around the area. Izuku once again left some of the lower-ranking shadows to collect the remains and anything valuable so that it could be put into his inventory. Izuku looked around and saw the others in his army. Nan looked tired as he still had mana reserves. Baru was looking down with a pout on his face. Igris was listening to Baruka, whilst the hatchling stayed near the two. Gabriel was slowly coming towards him with a smile on her face. It took some time to get to the last domain. This will be the last dragon, and then I can finally go home. Izuku thought to himself as he was walking at a comfortable pace. All of his shadows bar Gabriel returned to his shadow, so there wasn't an intimidation factor or even an earthquake following him. Darling, what are your plans after we come back? She asked him. Neither knew what actually happened on the outside of the gate, only knew that a new Nomu joined the army. After figuring what caused the Nomu to appear in inventory, I promised my class to enter a gate. It will most likely be a B rank gate. Finally, I will be going to Paris to meet Adrian. The Shadow Monarch explained. It sure was weird having a new Nomu soldier coming in. I hope the rabbit didn't die. Gabriel spoke out her thoughts, wanting to tease his girlfriend. Izuku spoke. Oh, is someone worried about Bun Bun? A smirk appeared on his face. Gabriel just huffed. I won't have anyone but to kick darling. Izuku just chuckled. We are here. You have entered the Great Light Dragon domain. The scenery was similar to heaven, but this time Izuku had his eyes adjust to the brightness level longer than he had liked. The sky was bright blue with the sun shining with more intensity but not heating the area above the comfort zone. The clear streams running through the hills that had vegetation growing all around. A clear contrast to what was the darkness domain. Danger! This was the only sign that allowed Izuku to dodge the attack. A semi-transparent light beam flew through the location he was standing at. Looking around and having to expand his senses, he could sense life forms. Using Bloodlust with the use of Darkness Overlord, Izuku was able to shoot a small creature out of hiding. Similar to the light beam, the transparency was turned off with the body hitting the ground. Lizard of Light, Light Sniper Lizard, Lizard of Purification. The 3 lizard types all are somewhat similar in nature. The Lizard of Light had its wings made of light. Light Sniper Lizard had a light tail waiting to strike, and finally the Lizard of Purification had light coming out of its mouth. All had white scales with their eyes being the color of bright yellow. What do you say about fighting them, only the 2 of us? Izuku asked his Tenchi. Smiling her beautiful smile, she replied. I thought you would never ask, darling. With that, the 2, without using any skills bar flight, fought the hordes using hand-to-hand combat. It was another 5 minutes when another opponent was introduced. Izuku recognized the body shape as a Draco. It was larger than the lizards, but its difference was that it had no teeth. Light manipulating Draco, smirking to each other, they increased the pace, dodging the light attacks. The light beams, light bullets, light breath, and the monsters. Nothing touched the duo. It was a beautiful dance of death. Skill, hand-to-hand expert leveled up from LV.4 to LV.5. Smiling at the notification, Izuku pushed on, but this time summoning Samahata. He started to tear away the enemy with ease and absorbing any magical attack they sent at him. It was another 15 minutes when reinforcements came for the lizards and Dracos. Serpent of Light, Light Whip Snake, Crocodile of Light, Light Apprentice Hatchling. The 1,000 of creatures came in, and now it was Izuku and Gabriel against most of the Light Domain's inhabitants. Smirking, Izuku spoke 2 words, come forth. With that, massive roars came from Izuku's shadow as his army of over 1.5k engaged the enemy. Darkness against light. It was an even battle with the odds going towards Izuku's army as time continued thanks to the commanders. Light and darkness attacks canceled each other out for most part, with the other shadows taking the opportunity and striking the enemy force down. The Great Light Dragon was awakened. Great Light Dragon Lolu, named from the Dragon of Light in Lucid Adventure I. The majestic 4-winged white dragon roared, making the battlefield quiet. All of the commanders looked at their eldest sister that wasn't turned into their liege's army yet. The pure light that emanated from her body was similar to the Heaven's Castle Archangel's true forms that they sadly lost. Alt-Hot Lolu looked like a completely normal dragon. Her power output said otherwise, being able to match her twin Acnologia. With this chaos erupted. Great Light Dragon Lolu is using the skill, Sun's Light. One attack, this is what it was. Izuku was lucky that Acnologia wasn't able to do this kind of attack straight of the bat. Being near Gabriel, Izuku used Infinity to cover the both of them from the attack. As the sky was blue, clear, the attack of the sun gave damage to over 90% of Izuku's forces. Piercing, destruction, slashing. Izuku's army of over 1,500 reduced to a measly 12, with only the 7 dragon commanders, Gabriel, Mikao, Baru, Paina, and Tobi were able to not get any damage or their damage was minimal at best. Then to counterattack, all commanders shot out one of their most powerful elemental attacks, destroying the army of the Light Dragon. You leveled up. Now, Izuku rarely was worried, but seeing his MP 934/133 for 30, he had to drink a potion that restored 10,000 MP. It costed him 2 million G. He had to finish this opponent as fast as he could. Not playing around, Izuku activated his Sharingan, used the skills Sprint, Bloodlust, Flight, Infinity, and Fire Manipulation to enhance himself so he could come closer to Lolu, and with cocking his fist back, he allowed the power to hit the dragon's main body. It was a combination for him to be able to have the least air resistance, maximum speed, and a small time frame when Izuku's opponent won't be able to move. The next thing that happened was something that could be written in the history books, an explosion similar to Nijire's new explosion release but on a nuclear level. The dragon blew up into bits with the shockwave even pushing back the dragon shadows back. You have defeated Great Light Dragon Lolu. Defeated. 8 out of 8. Quest. Dragon's Kingdom. Defeat the Great 8 has been completed. You leveled up, wincing a bit from the damage. Izuku spoke his final command before opening his reward. Arise. As per tradition, the amount of shadow soldiers that Izuku wanted to rise up rose to become an ally of his. The interesting difference was that all of the shadows from this domain remained to have their white scales but had black shadows coming from their eyes and some from their wings/body. Lolu LV.31 Commander, 100 Light Hatchling LV.26 Captain, 50 Serpent of Light LV.13 Captain, 50 Light Whip Snake LV.13 Captain, 50 Crocodile of Light LV.13 Captain, 50 Light Draco LV.3 Captain, 20 Lizard of Light LV.16 Elite Knight, 20 Lizard of Purification LV.16 Elite Knight, 20 Light Sniper Lizard LV.16 Elite Knight. Smiling slightly, he patted Lolu on her snout whilst she bowed. Izuku then looked at the quest. Quest, Dragon's Kingdom, defeat the Great 8 completed. There are 8 different zones and you need to go to each one to be able to leave the gate. Rewards. Reward 1? Reward 2? Reward 3? Defeated, 8 out of 8. Reward 1, the Greenet Thought. Reward 1. Skill. Bloodlust will now evolve to Dragon's Will. Looking curiously at it, he read what the new skill does. Skill. Dragon's Will active. The final form of Bloodlust. 5 MP per minute your opponent will be intimidated, and their stats will reduce by 60% if on the same level as yours or lower. If opponent's level is higher than yours, then opponent's stats will reduce by 10%. A figure of a dragon will appear behind you when the skill is in use. Heh, pretty nice. Izuku thought, continuing the thought. Reward 2. Reward 2, Dragon Tear, an item. Heh? Looking further, he saw the description of the item. Dragon Tear, item class. SS type. Enhancement A tear from all of the dragons in the dragon dungeon combined. This enhancement item can be placed on an existing shadow soldier for their defense to increase 200% and their attacks to increase by 100%. Damn, I think I won't use it at the moment. Time will tell who I will use the tear on. Izuku mused to himself. Reward 3 please. Reward 3. You can level 1 active skill by 1 level. Izuku was a little disappointed as yes, it was still a good reward, but he wouldn't lie, he expected something better. I think Infinity would be better leveled up as it is leveling slower than usual. And it was done as it was thought. Skill. Infinity leveled up from LV.2 to LV.3. Allows you to distort space and time at will. Main function is to make an infinity around you so no one and nothing can touch you. 500 MP to activate and 90 per second to keep up. Smiling at the gate being completed, he spoke out loud. Okay guys, we will be going home now. With that, all of his shadow soldiers went into his shadow bar, his girlfriend. Outside the gate, Izuku's phone started pinging with messages. It was a tsunami of messages from dozens of people. Gabriel looked at Izuku for a second, until she saw Izuku's face morph into horror. Earth started shaking. The skies rumbled. Now she knew something happened, barely catching a whisper and seeing a lone tear coming out of her boyfriend's eye. Dad's dead. Izuku's phone started pinging with messages. It was a tsunami of messages from dozens of people. Gabriel looked at Izuku for a second. Then she saw her boyfriend's usual neutral look turn the coldest cold with some horror written in it. It was also in Gabriel's instincts to feel what her liege feels. Like all other shadows, she could agree that someone must be punished. Earth started shaking, the skies rumbled, now she knew something happened. Barely catching a whisper and seeing a lone tear coming out of her boyfriend's eye, Dad's dead. Gabriel didn't know what to do or say. After a couple of seconds of processing the information, she placed her hand on his. Sadly, that didn't calm his feelings down much. But Gabriel could only ask one question: how? Whilst her ability was to be able to feel what Izuku does, the shadows do not have the same ability of seeing through other shadows nor the liege. Reading and looking for more information. Hawks was sent out by the HPSC to kill my dad, so that organization could have some control over me. Now Gabriel too released her anger. However, neither of them noticed something to happen to either Gabriel or the rest of the shadows. Something began to stir with them. Their beloved liege that saved them, helped them grow to their current strength. A promise was made between them, but something else too. With 1A, all of them were in the common rooms as reports of a massive pressure was being released with all of Asia, with parts of Europe and Africa feeling it too. The reporters and heroes were looking for what may have caused it. Suddenly, all of the 20 shadows and dark shadows came out at the same time as Izuku's shadows unknowingly came out too. Mashiro asked, "Guys, why are the shadows coming out? Is something happening again?" Toru asked uneasily. Nijai or Hato with their homeroom teacher also barged into the common room, or it would be better said if Izuku's shadows kidnapped them. "Does any of you know why Donald and Luna took me here?" A curious but an annoyed teacher asked the 20 students. There would be 21 if Izuku would be present. Problem child? A more protective tone was heard from the man. Shouldn't Zuzu still be in the Himalayas? A moment of silence occurred. Everyone bar the teacher explained he discovered it. The TV was on with Izuku and Gabriel on top Mount Everest. There was one problem. All shadows were surrounding or flying the mountain. We see Monarch on top Mount Everest. They zoomed in, seeing Izuku holding a phone. It seems that Monarch has discovered the news of what occurred recently. A shaky tone began to be heard as the camera zoomed out, seeing all of the shadows. New additions to the army appeared. 8 dragons with hundreds of smaller species became a new addition to the immortal army of the shadow hero, Monarch. The people who were watching the news looked in fear and admiration of the young man. Then they saw Izuku and his shadows leave. Dragons! Nijire squeaked in excitement. Ryukyu would be so excited to see them. All she received were deadpans from everyone, even the shadows. One of the angels started to write something for all to see in the air. "Stay indoors, our liege will be turning this country upside down." Most of the shadows went back into the shadows, but it was clear that most of them left one a dorm. It only took 2 minutes for notifications for the students to stay in their dorms until further notice, whilst hearing some teachers being flown away with some shadow angels. With the HPSC, she didn't know what was happening. One moment she was preparing to talk with the journalists. Then the next a small poke was felt in her leg. For some reason she couldn't muster the will to tell anyone, not knowing that was Izuku's plan, to make the HPSC president to damn herself. A revenge plan. With Izuku a couple minutes earlier, Izuku knew what to do. Instead of becoming like the HPSC, he will make themselves fuck themselves. Therefore, for 10 million gold, he bought a truth serum in the form of a small syringe. He gave it to one of his shadow soldiers to inject it secretly into Madam President before her talk with the reporters, whilst he went on to prepare the other steps. Currently in front of the reporters. "Good afternoon, everyone. This is a meeting towards the accusations of the HPSC and Hawks killing Hisashi Midoriya, the father of the shadow hero, Monarch. Questions?" Madam President stated in her neutral tone. A reporter with a head of a camera asked, "So you are stating that you have not ordered the killing of Hisashi Midoriya?" For some reason, the president couldn't control her mouth. "No, we have ordered the murder of Hisashi Midoriya." Everyone froze, including Madam President, at the statement. The security was trying to do something, but their movements were also locked. What the fuck? Is it someone's quirk? I can't get away, and everyone in this auditorium doesn't have any mind control or truth quirks. The president thought, panicking in the inside. Taking the opportunity, the same reporter asked, "Why did you kill him off, and what was your plan after that?" The serum was still under use, with Madam President stating, "It was our plan to use the murder of Hisashi Midoriya to have some leverage over Izuku Midoriya. He had become too powerful, and therefore we wanted to monopolize him for only Japan." We would have made him sabotage other countries with us slowly expanding our area of control, like we have done with Hawks. Panic, that is what she felt. Anger is what the audience felt. Sure, there were some die-hard Japan patriots that agreed to her wording. However, everyone knew that the HPSC was done for now. Another reporter who came out of their shock asked, were there other instances where you killed family members or used blackmail on heroes or any other citizen of Japan? Yes, we had killed members of heroes' family or friends to have them under our control. Endeavor is the biggest hero we have blackmailed for him to be under our control. She continued. Suddenly, a black shadow started to appear, with the person coming out continuing. You have killed 683 heroes, villains, citizens of Japan in your reign of 4 years. The documentations are all here. You used blackmail onto 856 people for them to do you so-called favors, including using villains to make some heroes have more political power to use for you or to eliminate people. He allowed the doors to the conference to open, making multiple heroes and police officers to enter. The cameras are still full on display. Nizu will release all of these documents on the UA website, but continuing forward. You have also made Hawks to infiltrate the League of Villains, which it might have been a good idea if you didn't risk the lives of Best Jeanist, Maruko, and Ryukyu, not to mention the civilians that could have died when the Nomu was released. No one could talk from the HPSC. Why, one might ask, why couldn't they move? Simple, Izuku's Darkness Overlord is making their bodies not move. You didn't like that nearly all of the top-ranking heroes don't follow you, so you wanted to eliminate them. Finally, the reason why you are in power. You sent Lady Nagin into Tartarus all because you and the previous president of the HPSC tortured her mentally and physically, making her snap, killing off the previous president. Izuku looked at her. At this moment, the HPSC will be under control of All Might, causing shock from the reporters, with the heroes and police officers smiling, finally having some hope, with All Might entering when his name was mentioned. Whilst I may have been informed that this is happening now, I knew that Nizu and young Izuku wanted to do this for some time. Tashinori thought to himself. He was shocked that from Izuku's powers, the HPSC was dealt in quick efficiency, with other heroes and shadows dealing with the other accomplices. With him speaking out loud now, "Thank you, Monarch." All Might smiled lightly, receiving a nod. All Might went to the place where the previous president of the heroes stood. Like Monarch stated, I will be taking reign not only as a national rank hero, but with a hero with around 40 years of experience running an agency and being a #1 hero. None of the reporters could have talked. All of Japan who was watching were shocked at the smooth takedown. We will be finishing dealing with the rest of the HPSC today. Secondly, we will be renaming ourselves to the Hero and Hunter Association. For everyone who has bad memories from the previous name to look forward to a better future. A couple of seconds later, All Might continue. I promise you, Japan, that we will form a better tomorrow. This is a promise I have taken at the beginning of my career as a hero, and I promise to continue protecting you all. Thank you. We will have another meeting in 2 days. With that, All Might and Monarch bowed, with the duo going back to continue dealing with the HPSC. One of the reporters came out of their shock. She looked back at the camera and stated, there is no more HPSC but the Hero and Hunter Association, with All Might leading it. This is a promising future for us. Back with 1A. Mouths were open from everyone. The 22 humans in the common room couldn't believe what happened. In one fell swoop, Izuku, with the help of dozens of heroes and police, arrested HPSC. So this is the power of the national rank? Kyoka asked. No one in particular. With an afterthought, she added, that was smooth. Momo continued, that easily. Izuku subdued the HPSC with the use of shadows, with no repercussions. Shoko continued, Sensei, did you know of this happening? Shota shook his head. I knew that Nizu and Izuku were discussing taking over HPSC, but with unfortunate events, the plans had been pushed forward. Chika was looking with wide eyes, thinking that was so fast. Aizu looked so hot, but the emotionless eyes did give me shivers down my back. She licked her lips, needing to change a piece of clothing soon enough. The teacher continued, now head to bed, brats. It is getting late. With that, he left, with Nijire going to Izuku's room, hoping that he will be coming back that night. That was a night when Japan was turned upside down. With the love, shock, awe, and respect could be seen from the remaining members of the League of Villains. None of them had a grudge towards Izuku, with his shadows capturing some of the missing members such as Magna or Muscular, but now all of them were laughing wholeheartedly. Tomura said during his laughter, this was gold. The HPSC fucked themselves, and with the documents being out, they don't have credibility now. Compress did have a question. Wouldn't the credibility of All Might leading this hero and hunter association change much? Even Azukan was there, shouldn't that raise the spirits of the citizens? Toga asked whilst laying on the couch with her head dangling and her legs being in the air. Tamura smirked. Whilst I admit I hate All Might, it was only because of the two national ranked heroes. The rest of the S ranks and downwards are useless. So we must show Japan that without the two pillars, they wouldn't be here anymore. They are scary. I agree totally. One masked individual named Twice spoke. The two villains came back for their day off. Even us villains need days off. That is what Twice remembered hearing from Overhaul. Dabi looked at the screen whilst finishing his chuckling. He stated, it was funny listening that Endeavor was blackmailed. The number 2 had and has no power, that how little the HPSC respected the S ranks. Although in the inside he was glad that Monarch and All Might took down the HPSC, as he still has bad memories of his childhood when his so-called father took him to be trained there. Spinner said offhandedly, at least we know now with full certainty that Hawks was a spy. The other members of the League nodded their heads in agreement. Flashback. Hawks walked into a storehouse with some type of purple tubes filled with nothing in them. In front of the bird hero stood a patched man named Dabi. So you came? The villain spoke. He threw out the cigarette he just finished smoking and stomped on it. I did. The hero looked around then asked, when can I join? Having his aloof expression on. To the point, heh? Dabi then took a second for the anticipation to build up. It is simple, you need to kill of a top 10 hero showing me proof. There is a second part before you meet up with Bossman, but that will be told after you the first part to me. After that, Dabi walked back into the portal. Flashback end. It was only a week after that meeting that Hawks brought the body of Best Jeanist to Dabi. Was it actually Jeanist in the bag? Himiko asked in all curiosity. It was Tamura who actually answered. From Sensei's sources, there was an actual fight between Jeanist and Hawks. However, Best Jeanist escaped but with major blood loss, with him still being in hospital. This caused Spinner and Himiko to open their mouth in surprise. With Izuku, he was tired. Mental exhaustion was stacking on with what happened after the gate. Ignore having fatigue. 32 just after the finish of the gate. All he wants to do now is go to sleep with his girlfriends. He saw All Might looking over at him and spoke in a gentle voice. Go to sleep, young Izuku. Tomorrow you can visit your father. Then after a second he continued. Shota would want to accompany you. Izuku just nodded. I will, thank you. All Might just sighed, hugged him with the young teen hugging back slightly. With that, All Might saw a Leshy in the place Izuku was. Which was right, Izuku used shadow exchange with the shadow in Nijire as he sensed her being in his room. So after ignoring a yelp from his girlfriend, he hugged her with Gabriel coming out and hugging his other side. The trio moved to his bed falling asleep soon after. No one realized that Gabriel was communicating with the other shadows. They changed for the better or for worse will be seen. The mental conversation of the Shadow Army. We will protect our liege, so nothing like this happens again to him. Ashni, the lightning dragon, spoke. Whilst the dragon was in the army a short while, all of them have the same undying loyalty to Izuku. Agreed. That is what everyone spoke in one way or another. Igris spoke out his thoughts. What about the 3 of our liege's classmates? It was surprisingly Gabriel who spoke. Darling wouldn't need them. They are too weak. In a haughty tone of voice, Baru continued. Our beloved master needs strong women. I don't like those 3, they are nothing. Even Rabbit Woman and Nijire are strong. Everyone's sweat dropped. It was a common fact that Nijire was always petting or cuddling with Baru, with the ant finally acknowledging her. Not because of her strength but her head pats. It was finally Pain who spoke. Our liege needs only strong women who can take care of themselves if something happens to them if no one is around. I hate to admit it, but we are not perfect, and having to deal with weaklings will be a bigger risk to themselves. It wasn't often when any of the Akatsuki spoke, but Pain being the 12th strongest had some command. Gabriel just huffed. The only reason why Rumi and I agreed to share him with Nijire because he befriended her before meeting myself and her being pretty strong for her age. Now I need to talk to Rumi and Nijire to not allow those 3 in or any other. This was the change in the shadows. Not only could they talk to themselves, but the protectiveness increased, not wanting their liege to be hurt anymore, which included the heart. Rumi and Nijire became loved, but that is what the shadows would accept so far. Help me with not allowing the other girls to ask Darling out. She received a yes from all of the shadows. Once again, a surprise was when one other Akatsuki member spoke. He was the least vocal but the most observant of them all, Itachi. Do not forget the others, Gabriel, if my memory serves me right there are. with the conversation spamming for another hour before they finished discussing. Next day, Rumi found Izuku, Gabriel, and Nijire eating breakfast, with her jumping straight onto Izuku. The monarch produced a light smile seeing her. He swung her around his body with her legs surrounding Izuku's lower stomach. "Hey Zuku," Rumi spoke lightly while still hugging him. "Morning, Bun Bun," Izuku replied, placing her on her own 2 feet. "Breakfast?" he asked with her shaking her head. "Why are you here, Rabbit?" Gabriel asked with a challenging tone, whilst Nijire, bless her heart, waved at Rumi saying, "Good morning, Rumi." The rabbit hero ignored Gabriel for a second, with her waving back at Nijire. Then looking at the angel she spoke, "Can I not meet my boyfriend? I haven't seen him all weekend." Tisk. But a friendlier expression appeared on her face. "It is good you aren't dead from the Nomu." A viscous smirk came across Gabriel's face now. A twitching eye was what Rumi's expression. But before her rebuttal, Izuku asked, "I saw the recap of the fight. That Nomu trunk is a captain class shadow, which as you know is high S rank to low national level." Her boyfriend came hugging Rumi from behind saying it. "I'm glad that you could have showed others the real power of yours. But how are you feeling after showing the telekinetic part?" He was proud of her. Whilst she didn't defeat the Nomu by herself, she handled herself the best out of the heroes present. He promised to help Rumi but also Nijire become stronger. Calming down from the touch of Izuku, she murmured, "Reporters are more persistent than usual. But I used telekinetic power to pull myself to one place and I am gone. Although I must add the regeneration factor, small as it may have been, it saved me a bunch there." She laughed at the end with the others chuckling too, even the angel. But in a more serious tone, "Are we visiting him today?" Everyone knew what she was talking about. Izuku just nodded. "Sensei is coming with us? We will be meeting with him in an hour." Everyone knew what Rumi was talking about. Izuku just nodded. "Sensei is coming with us? We will be meeting with him in an hour." That is what All Might told to the Greenette after having the HPSC be turned upside down. It was just Monday morning, and the week ahead of them they all knew it will be a long one. After eating breakfast, Izuku used Shadow Exchange to a shadow that was near Aizawa per his instructions. The 4 beings stood outside the UA staff dorm with Izuku knocking on the door. It was surprisingly Kayama-sensei, otherwise known as Midnight, who opened the door. "Oh darling Izuku, are you alright?" No one could have predicted that Izuku, who was taller than Kayama, to be in a state where he was losing oxygen from her smothering him in her breasts. "Can't breathe," Izuku rasped out, forgetting about his skills such as infinity. Luckily for him and unluckily for Midnight, 3 pairs of twitching eyes with a kick in the gut by Gabriel with 8% of her power got the teacher out of Izuku's personal space. No one noticed Kayama's nosebleed a little after feeling Izuku up. "Thank you," Izuku spoke in a whisper. Currently, that teacher was lying near the communal kitchen that was on the opposite side of the dorm entrance. "No problem, darling," the shadow angel spoke in a loving tone. "I won't kill you as you were one of Darling's senseis, but be warned," thought. She finished her internal monologue with a haughty tone. Rumi gave a quick side look at Gabriel, seeing that something has changed in her sister figure. Shota came down looking at Kayama unimpressed. "Seriously, it's 9 in the morning. Shouldn't you be with your class?" Then he remembered, "I forgot today is a day off for the first-year hero students, so you don't have any classes until later." Aizawa grumbled the last thing. The homeroom teacher was wearing a black suit with a white shirt with it. His hair was in a bun and his beard was trimmed. "You ready?" "I am sensei," Izuku replied in his normal tone of voice. Quirking an eyebrow, Shota asked, "Are those 3 coming along?" Receiving a nod from his student and the 3 girls, he just made a follow-me motion with his head going towards the car. No one talked much during the ride, with the 5 of them heading to the mortuary. After they were identified just to be sure, Izuku, his girlfriends and Shota entered the room seeing the casket. They all thought they were alone until a white circle with runes appeared, shocking all 5. All present went into positions with Luna and Donald coming out to protect Aizawa, with Mikao, Baru, Pain, Igris, and Baruka coming out too. Toby would have come out, but he was still on the mission finding Nana. The sight of 1 upper low-tier international hero, a high national shadow, 5 low national shadows, 2 S-rank heroes, an A-rank hero with 2 A-rank shadows could scare anyone off, but the circle continued to expand. The reason why those shadows came out was once again from the protectiveness of theirs, not wanting anything to happen to their liege or his close ones. With Heian, she was knocking on Izuku's door as she smells him in the dorm in the morning, but now she realized he might have left. Seeing the door locked, she went back to her room thinking if Izuku was visiting the mortuary. The room of the Korean student had a yellow double bed with multiple plushies on top of it. a desk filled with schoolwork and some paperwork from Yoroi Musha. She turned to look through her closet to find some training clothes, with her soon leaving the dorm to enter a gym echo, saying out loud, "I know you are there." Out of the entrance to the gym came a young teen the same age as her. "Sorry, I was trying to practice my skill in being unnoticed." A blonde spoke. Heian knew who it was, the transfer chica Ashigaka. "You here to train too?" All the Korean girl received was a nod, with the other girl going into a different part of the gym. For some reason, Heian couldn't trust the new girl completely. From her practice with Izuku with him showing some Nomu to her, she could identify lightly when something or someone has multiple quirks, and this chica smelled to have at least 2 if not 3. Shaking her head, she started training and creating multiple swords at once. Heian's limit at this moment were 4 blades of intermediate strength. The hero in training hoped to be able to create 5 blades in a moment, with at least 3 of them being of a high strength before winter break. She didn't want to be a burden for Izuku but also become strong for herself. In the mortuary, the circle with the runes made a pillar of bright light. Tensing, what was revealed was an angel with 12 white wings and a halo behind their head. "Good morning." Then suddenly, the angel had the lance of Longinus, Michael's long sword, Demon King's long sword, and Kusanagi pointed in his vitals, with others having some kind of weapon ready. "Who are you?" It was Izuku who asked the question. The blonde with a gentle smile on his face said, "I am sorry for the intrusion, but my name is Michael." Some sweat could be seen on the Archangel's face, especially having all of the weapons come closer. After hearing this name, Gabriel started to release more and more pressure that gone unnoticed by all but Michael. "Didn't I kill Michael, the leader of the angels, or are you a different one?" Izuku spoke in a harsher tone than before, remembering the previous Michael killing of Gabriel. "No, my child. I presume you are talking about the gates?" The Archangel responded calmly. Gabriel spoke out next. "Why are you here then?" Quirking an eyebrow in surprise, he said, "You really do look like Gabriel. I am here to make you an offer, Izuku Midoriya." "How would we know that you are not from a broken gate?" Shota asked. He didn't want anything to happen to his favorite problem child, even if he was the weakest in the room by rank. "I quite assure you that I am not from a gate. Only a handful on humans know, but not only do humans live on Earth." Michael continued peacefully. "What do you mean, and how did no one know before?" Nijire asked. "Due to being Nijire. You might call us the supernatural. Not a lot knows because of what happened just prior to the quirk era. The humans before that didn't have quirks but sacred gears. But because of us defeating Trihexa, they all disappeared. We still don't know how." Michael explained peacefully, seeing as the weapons have been moved a bit away from himself. The people have heard a feminine voice saying, "My liege, what this angel is speaking the truth. Trihexa is one of the strongest dragons. If memory serves me well, there are 4 other ultimate dragons." Michael had a cold sweat rolling down his neck from the information he received. The Seraph knew of 2 other dragons excluding Trihexa, that being Ophis and Great Red. "Thank you, Lolu. We will continue this conversation later." Izuku asked curiously, still being on full alert. "So what was you offer?" "As you are aware, gates have been opening. With them, a lot of mythological replicas have appeared, like with Gabriel or this Lance of Longinus. My offer is that I will revive your father to his original state, but he will be an angel." Izuku quirked an eyebrow, with the others doing the same. "I will also help you fake his funeral." That wasn't just an afterthought message, but to let the group in front of him process. "What's the catch, and what will you do to him after?" Rumi asked in place of Izuku. "He will be living in heaven with Hisashi, being able to come down from heaven when he wants. His heart is pure, which is why I am offering you this in the first place, as this is what we angels seek." The leader of the angels started. Izuku nodded at that. "I will only ask for 2 things. Firstly is that you would visit heaven for us to see the difference between the angels in your army compared to ours. Secondly is for a contract to be formed for you to help us in a time of need." Michael stated his conditions. "I would agree to those conditions if you won't experiment on any of my shadows, and I will only help you if your faction would be attacked first." However, that was the moment Michael realized how powerful Izuku was, with him showing most of his aura on a singular target. "If you do anything to my dad that he doesn't want to, there won't be a heaven faction anymore." Izuku said that after a minute of consideration. He ignored the shocked looks behind him, but he continued, "Would it be possible for us to have a further meeting about the supernatural? It has seemed that the so-called strongest human forgot about the burst of aura he did a bit ago." Michael knew from that moment that he couldn't have beaten Izuku without losing the majority of heaven. With a smile coming on his face, he realized that the teen in front of him didn't lie. That shall be done. He then took out a card of 2 spade suit. The angel continued, those are the brave saints cards only available for the seraphs at the moment. The weapons were long gone with the shadow soldiers going back into the shadows, which made Michael calmer, but he still didn't forget about the aura that the individual released not a minute ago. Therefore, the group of 6 came closer to the casket, which they saw a really pale Hisashi Midoriya in a black suit. Michael came the closest, with Izuku going to the other side to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Hisashi Midoriya, awaken from your slumber and rise up into the arms of the Lord Almighty. Become a follower of God and help those around you like you have done in your life. The way Michael said it was with a similar tone of voice when Gabriel went into her final form, the true form with multiple voices overlapping each other. With that, the 2 of spades went into the chest of Hisashi. A golden glow surrounded the dead man with the color returning. It only took 4 minutes for the elder Midoriya to start to twitch, seeming to be waking up. Izuku sensed that life was returning to his father, with tears coming down his eyes for the first time in ages. A small smile appeared on the young man's face, with him holding one of his dad's hands, squeezing in reassurance. Will my dad be all right now? Izuku asked the seraph. He should be waking up in 3 hours, and he will be returning to his former strength, so do not worry, my child. Michael would always say it, but he was happy when he saw such a precious moment like this. That is why he continued being the leader of heaven after his father passed. How will we deal with the funeral? Shota asked after getting out of the shock, seeing that his life was flipped upside down once again. That will be simple. I will be creating a clone of your father. It will be identical, but it never had life. This conversation was mainly Michael talking with Shota. Izuku during this time was holding his dad's hand in happiness. Then he felt 2 hands on his shoulders with one person hugging his back. Thank you for being with me, he whispered for only his girlfriends to hear it, causing smiles to appear on their faces. Fast forward, after Michael said his goodbyes to the group with the angel taking the unconscious body of Hisashi, he promised to come to Izuku's dorm later on the day. The fake body was decided to be cremated and have it placed in the Midoriya grave that unfortunately already had Inko in. Not wanting to make a huge fuss of the event, Izuku invited family and his dad's friends, which to his surprise wasn't much who wanted to come. Only the Bakugos and 3 friends of Hisashi's from America will be coming, with the funeral being held on Thursday. The 5 entered UA with them, having some time to spare before 1A and 1B came back from training with Titania and Kamikaze. So with Aizawa going to get some sleep, the other 4 went towards Izuku's room, or better said, Izuku used Kamui to get them to his room. Having his room fully soundproof from the instances his classmates knew what he was talking about during the bed talk, he knew that his room was safe. Luckily, none of them did the deed yet, so no further embarrassment occurred. Going to the main sitting area, Izuku sighed and spoke. That was a lot to take in. To think there was more things that we didn't even know. Rumi continued. Whole new worlds to see, with different factions being different religions. Gabriel continued. Let's explore those places. Some homes of the gods are apparently really pretty. Nijire finished, with all 3 not having anything bad to say to the airhead. It was only when all of the 4 were relaxing when Nijire started the conversation. I don't know if you know Zuku, but Sir Knight I was talking to Ryukyu to have you and Rumi involved with a raid. Quirking an eye, Rumi asked, Was that a reason why Ryuko asked for me on Saturday? The Bluenet just nodded. Yeah, apparently the one that they are against is named Overhaul. He is wanted because of creating quirk erasing bullets, but also because he is using human blood in those bullets. Although Nijire forgot to mention that there will be a meeting discussing the Overhaul raid on Wednesday. Izuku and Gabriel looked like lost puppies whilst Rumi nodded sagely. He is apparently an S-rank villain, as not only does he lead a Yakuza organization that numbers over 200 people, but his quirk can assemble and disassemble matter to the atomic level. There are some rumors going around that the Shai Hasaikai are partnering with the League of Villains. Miruko continued. Can I eat him? Baru pleaded with tears coming from his eyes. Everyone's sweat dropped. Izuku just patted his head. Whilst I admire your will to become strong, Baru, not every fight has to end with a kill. Then he spoke to his shadows in general. Muscular is an example. Ignoring the shock of Nijire and Rumi, Izuku just patted the ant on the head. Baru ate up the villain, which made Baru rise 1 level up. Wait, that is where the A-rank villain went? Rumi asked in disbelief. Izuku had some sweat dripping on the back of his neck, seeing the admittedly cute angry look that Nijire was sending him. He attacked the camp during summer, so Dracula dealt with him. Rumi just nodded to the information, with Nijire just giving a slow one at that. Talking about it, Lolu, can you explain to us about the 5 great dragons? All of the participants knew that the size of the light dragon's head was too large. So the sound came from Izuku's shadow. Yes, my liege, my sister Acnologia, and I were told about them, as each dragon came from one of the five. The creator, otherwise known as the one above all, created 5 dragons to help him keep balance. The dragon of infinity, Ophis. The dragon of dreams, Great Red. The dragon of fate, Fafnir. The dragon of apocalypse, Trihexa. The dragon of salvation, Tianlong. Those 5 are the most powerful, with Trihexa and Tianlong being similar to myself and Acnologia. 2 opposites that need each other. The yin and yang. Rumi muttered, creation and destruction. Gabriel continued in this analogy. How can we defeat them if they turn against us? Izuku asked this question. The 4 dragons are unknowns, which is more dangerous than any other situation. Shall not worry, my beautiful liege, for I, Baru, will stand with you to the very end. The lovable ant said, with Gabriel squeezing Izuku's thigh. I agree, my liege. All of us will follow you. Acnologia spoke, with the other shadows speaking if they can or sending noise. Thank you guys, you are the best. A group hug occurred with shadows coming out and going on top of each other. No one noticed that Izuku's room was being filled up with at least A-rank energies, with at least hundreds of S-rank auras being on full blast too. Nijire and Rumi already got used to having national-level auras from being near them, so this was nothing to them. For UA staff and students, it was another thing entirely, especially when some Captain Hatchlings came out to join in. Izuku realized that, as the name said, the Hatchlings were still young, so they didn't know the norm compared to the Commander Dragons. With the Hatchlings being on the verge of national-level heroes, students started to feel weak on their knees, with Nizu having to call Izuku for the auras to lower down. 1A noticed that Izuku had come back from his business, so they hoped that they could see him in the evening. Those weaklings will have to start getting used to our auras. Rumi joked around with this after everything calmed down. This was a good icebreaker as everyone started to laugh. Izuku wouldn't admit it, but this day had been going better than he had thought. It wasn't much later when Izuku's classmates start coming in, with Izuku meeting them with dinner ready. Izuku was in the dorm living room with Nijire, Rumi, Gabriel, Igris, Pain, Baruka, and Raphael playing Uno, with Izuku winning. Izuku only had 1 card, whilst Rumi and Baruka had at least 20, with Pain having 2. The class watched the fascinating game where pride was on the line. A battle that was broken by an excited shout from Mina, I am joining in. With the ice broken, the class joined in playing Uno, seeing that Izuku's smile was fractionally larger. At the end of the massive Uno battle, it was to no surprise that Izuku was the overall winner, with Pain coming in second. Rumi and Katsumi both sulked, with them having over 30 cards each. How the fuck can I lose? I demand a rematch. Rumi and Katsumi shouted simultaneously. This is how the next 2 hours was spent between 1A, Izuku's girlfriends, and a couple of shadows. Pain POV. I neither know where I came from nor why I was fighting my liege in that gate. What I am aware was when I opened my eyes, I had an order from a feminine voice that I need to kill the invaders. My theory was the wooden statue that my liege and his girlfriend were near was the reason, but nevertheless I had to fight against them. It was the toughest battle I had to fight in. It might have been my first one, but I am sure that I had a life before being intertwined with the so-called Akatsuki Gate. To no surprise, I was summoned to join my liege's army, which I became the 12th strongest shadow, but 4th humanoid strongest if we didn't count the dragon commanders. I have a long way to be one of the strongest in the army, but my abilities are one of the most crucial to my liege, which everyone agrees on. But now I am happy, happier than I have been, but at the same time confused. Uno was a game which, when explained, seemed simple enough, but how are the humans so bad at playing it? Whilst the cards dealt are based on luck, winning is by strategizing which cards you have to place first. Or was it that I could see what others had as their cards? Nevertheless, it was fun spending time with my liege, and blessed that I had a chance to be resurrected to be by his side. Now I need to get stronger to the general class for me to start speaking with my liege. Normal POV. The class saw that Izuku was feeling better after the previous day problems. Rikido made cookies for the class, with the class bonding session being longer than expected. Izuku remembered his meeting when he felt the same energy of Michael in his room, so he excused himself with his girls, leaving to his room. The shadows who were out for Uno left long ago prior to this happening. So when Izuku entered his room, he saw 2 figures that he rushed to hug, one which the other reciprocated. Dad, it is so good to see you again, Izuku muttered whilst hugging his dad, with Nijire, Rumi, and Gabriel following suit. So after talking with his dad and ignoring Michael, the 6 returned to business. And that's a wrap for What If Deku Had Solo Leveling System, Part 9. The story is getting more intense, and you already know Part 10 is going to be on another level. If you're loving this, hit that like button, We're aiming for 100 likes to keep this series going strong. Big shout out once again to Michael Zelanka for their incredible work. Make sure to support them. And of course, to all my legendary viewers, thank you for always showing up and making this journey epic. Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments. What's Deku's next power-up? What's the next challenge? Let's talk about it. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay strong, stay legendary. Chronos out.